Good evening, everyone. We have 2 meetings before we start our regular council meeting. So the first meeting is call to order for Eagle Mountain. Roll call, please.
Chairman Dickey.
Here.
Vice Chairman Spellich.
Present.
Board Member McMahon.
Present.
Board Member Charno.
Here.
Board Member Magazine.
Here.
Board Member Friedel.
Present.
Board Member Grosbowski.
Present. Thank you. Grady?
Mayor and Council, the first item on the agenda for the Eagle Mountain Facilities District is the consideration of the meeting minutes.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Move approval.
Yeah, move approval, please. Thanks.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll open a hearing for consideration of the budget.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and for the public who are here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and have our Finance Director, David Pock, give a very brief synopsis of this item, which is the approving the final budget for the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District for next fiscal year. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pock.
Good evening. I don't have a presentation for this, try to keep it short. But yes, after the final payments made for the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District in July, there won't be that many expenses for the district for the year. So there is only $1,000 that's budgeted for various administrative fees throughout the year. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions? No? Any comment cards? So I'll close the hearing. Ask again if you have any comments or anything. Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So now we adjourn, right? Motion to adjourn? Right? Do we have to do that? No? Okay, we're adjourned, and we'll go right into the Cottonwoods Maintenance District. Do we do roll call?
Chairman Dickey.
Here.
Vice Chairman Spellich.
Present.
Board Member McMahon. Present. Board Member Charno.
Here.
Board Member Magazine.
Here.
Board Member Friedel.
Present.
Board Member Grosbowski.
Present. Thank you. Again, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Public hearing, and David?
All right, so for Cottonwoods, this is a special year. We're actually for the past 10 years, have been collecting reserves in order to paint the wall that surrounds Cottonwoods district. This year is that lucky year, so we're going to use some of those reserves in addition to the regular landscaping contracts that we have throughout the year. So the total budget is just over $18,000 for fiscal year 22. Any questions?
Are there any questions about that or any comment cards? So do I keep the public hearing open for all three of these, right? Yes, yes, sir.
I have a couple questions on this district. I'm wondering why we're still involved with this 10 years later. Isn't this something we could turn over to those residents either through an HOA of their own, or they could join the NPOA? I don't know how much time the town spends on this, but we're not getting anything out of this, and certainly they could do better with their own HOA or being part of the NPOA.
Councilmember, that's an excellent point. There's a history to this, though, and the history is they were given that option several years ago and chose not to do that. They were able to arrive at a consensus on this, and while I would agree with you that I believe that homeowner associations can typically probably do this a little bit more efficiently, they seem to be very satisfied with the situation, and we're more or less, it's a pass-through. So we do the assessment of the levy, we collect it, and then we go ahead and in turn expend it on the maintenance improvement district. So as far as that goes, I would agree with you, but the residents that originally formed this, they did so, and, we could approach them to see if they would like to take this over. But I would tell you that they're generally pretty satisfied with the way it's been operating. So it's a good question.
I just wonder, though, how much time we're spending on it. And it's costing us, and actually it's costing all the residents of this town, in an effect, to manage this. And how long ago did we approach them? And maybe it's something it's time to revisit.
I will commit that the staff and I will reach out to them. That the issue gets down to they're not organized, so they don't have any, HOA, they don't have a board. So we'd have to actually probably reach out to the entire neighborhood, and that's really what it is. It's truly a neighborhood that we did this. But we actually, with what we put in the wall and the landscaping at their request, and it has made improvements to their neighborhood. But I will commit, this time next year, we'll at least be able to report back and let you know what we found out. We'll do it earlier than that.
Okay.
But it's a good question, it's fair.
Thank
So.
you.
Thank you. I will close the public hearing, and somebody would please make a motion. In a second, please. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The next is the approval of professional service agreement. Grady?
Yes. Justin Weldy, our Public Works Director, has a few words to say about this item. Mr. Weldy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of the maintenance, as just described by the Finance Director, Mr. Pock, this year we are going to be painting the wall in an attempt to do or show that we've done our due diligence on behalf of the taxpayers. We reached out to 3 qualified vendors. Each of them had an opportunity to view the project, walk the wall, and measure the wall, and we received 3 bids. One of them from A&H Painting in the amount of $18,400. One of them from Elko Enterprises in the amount of $11,500, and one from G-Con Inc. in the amount of $42,670. Excuse me, based on the facts that they all had exactly the same information, we would request that the board respectfully select Elko Enterprises as the most responsive low bidder. It should also be noted that Elko Enterprises has done numerous projects for the town and works locally, and is also a local business owner and has been here for 30-plus years, I believe. With that, if there are any questions about the bidding process or the process after award, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Mike?
No, I just, getting back to the other issue, I think that goes back to Town Manager Paul Norden back in the 90s, and the developer at the time didn't form an HOA, unfortunately, and I think property owners at that time tried to form an HOA, but I think they probably needed a certain amount of approval from everybody, and they couldn't do it, so they approached Paul, and that's, the rest is history. But it's obviously worth looking into again, but go ahead and move the approval of professional services agreement 2021-51 with Elko Enterprises.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the last item, is that you too, Justin?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, the next one is directly tied to the wall painting as well. There is some vegetation and some landscape materials that need to be removed from the wall and pulled back from the wall. As you'll recall, Verde Valley Landscaping was originally approved for this multi-year contract, and so logically the thing to do was to ask them, since they are local and working nearby. And they gave us what we believe is a quite reasonable price to remove the vegetation that is on the wall or next to the wall and pull the granite back, allow for the painting to take place, and then put the granite back up against the wall. With that, and this one is rather uncomplicated, if there are any questions, I'll certainly answer them to the best of my ability.
Any questions or comment cards? No? Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
You're welcome.
Motion, please.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. So I will adjourn that. Don't have to get a motion. And we will open the regular meeting of Town Council. Please stand for the pledge and remain standing. Thank you. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Spellich.
Present.
Councilmember McMahon. Councilmember Charno.
Present.
Councilmember Magazine. Councilmember Friedel. Councilmember Grisbowski.
Present. Thank you. Our first item, as always, is reports by the town manager and council members. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As many of you heard over the weekend, we were saddened to learn about the loss of former Mayor Jerry Miles. Jerry Miles was mayor from 1996 to 1998. He and his wife really touched a lot in this community, but they were both very active in Fountain Hills. And he's definitely going to be missed. There's going to be more information regarding services and memorials and such in the near future. But I just wanted to just bring that up because he and his wife really have been very much involved in this community, and the loss will definitely be felt by the community. So the other item I wanted to report on to the council was on June 5th, we're going to be having our second vaccination clinic. We're going to have the second Moderna shot from when we had it last month. And also we'll have the Pfizer shot, which will be shot 2. The first shot will be available on June 5th, and we'll come back on June 26th for the second shot for the Pfizer. And then finally, we'll also be offering the single shot Johnson & Johnson, all on June 5th and also on June 26th. Fire Chief Ott, did I miss anything on that? We're okay, so that's good. The thumbs up is always a good sign. Anyways, we're going to do everything we can to get the word out. And again, these will be available to all individuals who are 18 and older. So thank you. Oh, thank you. Community Center. It will be held at the Community Center here. Yes, Dave? Pfizer is good for 12? Oh, yes. Pfizer has just been approved recently by the CDC or FDA for those that are 12 and older, and then everything else will be for 18, the other 2 vaccines. So anyways, this is a big deal because there aren't too many of these clinics where they're able to do all 3. So this is a great thing, and it can't be as convenient as what we have in our own community. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Thank you. Yes, Sharon, Councilwoman.
That's okay. Sharon's cool. Let's see. I did a few things the past couple of weeks. I attended the GPEC Board of Directors meeting, the Arizona League Legislative Call Update. We only had one this go-round. And GPEC had a Transforming Places and Spaces meeting. One of the speakers reminded us that when we were younger, where we hung out was the regional mall. And that's kind of not a thing anymore, and it's been going out of style for a while, and the past year definitely has shown to us that the traditional mall style isn't working. So one of the projects we got to hear about was the new Paradise Valley Mall redevelopment project. It looks like it's going to be about 50% residential and 50% non-residential, including many bike and walking paths, and it's really interesting and something that I was kind of excited about. And sort of a commercial I'm going to put on here. The Leadership Academy Planning Committee has firmed up their dates for Class 5, and applications are now being accepted, I want to say through June 12th or June 19th, but you can go out to ilovefountainhills.org, learn more about the leadership class, as well as fill out an application. And just to let my council colleagues know, I have to take the red eye back to Virginia this evening, so I'm going to be heading out at 8:30. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't want to let this moment pass without following up on Grady's comment about Jerry and Jackie Miles. Cynthia and I have lived in this town about 15 years, and I don't know anybody who's come close to dedicating so much to the present and future of this town. Several of us were asked to go out and take photos of the sculptures for the photo club. And I was just out there and just amazed by the number of sculptures that Jerry and Jackie paid for. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think we have something in the neighborhood of 140 sculptures in this town. And I've got to give credit to the two of them for starting this up, pushing it, being behind it. Nobody, in my view, could be more dedicated to this town than the two of them.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman?
Good evening. I would like to share with my council members that today I attended 2 different committee meetings. One was the AZ League of Cities Sustainability and Quality of Life. And I'd like to share that they have agreed to officially promote and move forward with working with the state, SRP, other companies and organizations to increase electronic car charging units statewide, to restore the state's recycling fund in the next legislative session, to find ways to support the state's efforts to expand sustainable and renewable energy resources on a broader scale, and also to work with MAG to address the homeless issues. There was another committee meeting today with MAG on the Economic Council, and they are going to continue to support the development of the Regional Transportation Plan and ensure that Prop 400, the Transportation Dedicated Sales Tax Initiative, doesn't phase out in 2025, so we will continue to have funds to promote that. Also, the regional housing market, we discussed how much it's booming and that a lot of people are moving here from Seattle and California. The average price of the house has gone up between $420,000 and $480,000. A lot of people can't afford that, so they're taking another look. And it's also because building materials are in short supply, and that is also driving the market. There's not any new homes. And they're looking at more about affordable housing. I know Tempe has created a Hometown for All initiative that combines a portion of the town's building permit fees, a private company pledges, donations, and other committed funds together, and creates a separate fund for affordable housing, which they have a few $1 million in, which they're going to start building out some affordable housing, which is kind of a cool plan. I'd like to learn more about it, actually. And also in last year, in 2020, even given the COVID, Phoenix has 34 brand new companies internationally and nationally have come into Arizona, and they have invested billions of dollars in our economy. There's created about 8,000 new jobs, and this trend is not slowing down. It keeps going, and we're going to keep everybody abreast of that. So that's kind of cool. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I attended the call with the League of Cities on May 25th, talking about the flat tax proposal and the effects that it'll have on towns like ours. It could be up to $1 million, close to $1 million in shared revenue that this town won't have. So I call on all of my fellow council people to keep that in mind if they don't find a resolution to either hold us harmless going forward or something. When we spend our money, we need to be wise with what we do with it, especially if we have a shortfall because of that. And I just want to say that Mr. Ponder, who was on that call, was very sharp, and he had a lot of answers. And so they're not done with that yet, but still in the works, but it was an interesting call. I also attended a ribbon-cutting ceremony. We have a new priority hearing, welcomed Dr. Elizabeth Diamond to town, so glad to have her here, and I guess she's got a couple of other locations throughout the valley as well. And yesterday I helped the Rotary set up flags around our fountain. We did between 2,000 and 3,000 flags. We got so many positive comments from that, it was unbelievable. And it was pretty spectacular looking too. And then yesterday I also attended the Post 58, the Legion here in town. Had a memorial at the Veterans Wall, and I want to say there must have been 500 or 1,000 people there. It was really packed, so it was a pretty moving experience, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was at the same ribbon cutting Jerry was. A priority hearing in tendinitis is on Parkview Avenue, and also attended Valley Metro board meeting less than 2 weeks ago, and that wraps it up for me.
No, not really, because you were with me when we went to the high school. I always catch them. First, I just want to mention that so that we can accommodate the timing, we're going to move 8G and 8J to come right after 8C. So we'll do the budget, and then we'll do 8G and 8J. Yeah, the Fountain Hills High School became a 2020 A+ School of Excellence, and we went to that newly dedicated Falcon Nest, and that's where they had it. So we want to congratulate the school district on those accomplishments. Attended the MAG Executive Board Nominating Committee. We met and we nominated a slate for the board there, and then we had Regional Council the whole day. Mike and I and staff are working on these transportation issues that Jerry brought up about the next 25 years. Did you say it? Sorry. But Peggy, yeah, that the MAG and RPTA are working not only on just transit, but on, roads and such. So I was happy to attend the high school graduation. As always, it was very encouraging and hopeful, and it got real cool and beautiful. Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation Vice President Paul Russell did one of the speeches, and it was very positive and empowering for the graduates. And in fact, all the speakers were really thoughtful and inspiring. It was a great evening. I had the chance to meet with a couple of different potential businesses last week, and we're going to continue discussions this week with the Chamber and the Scottsdale Area Realtor about the sign ordinance. So that's Wednesday and Thursday. And also, I was introduced to Marshall Shore, known as the Hip Historian, to share the story of Fountain Hills in an online setting through writing a list of trivia questions. So you write the questions, and then the answers become what the program is. So it was poignant because of the timing, because I was using the book, The Rising Above the Rest, that Jerry pretty much wrote. There were a lot of collaboration, but he put the whole idea together. So, obviously before the fact, but I was able to hold the book up, mention Jerry, mention Alan, and Gene Linzer. As you all said, Jerry was so committed to our community, and he will be sorely missed, all of his contributions, and just having him here. Our condolences, of course, to Jackie and his family, and his colleagues, his many colleagues, and his many friends. And like Grady said, there'll be more information coming. It's a great loss for our community. Thank you. Our next item is one that we haven't been able to do for a while, which is a recognition of the Students of the Month. So we have a lot of months to make up for, not to mention some joyful moments. So we decided that we would recognize half of them tonight, and then we'll do the rest on January 15th. These are the stellar students. The mayor and town council are proud to recognize the students for demonstrating good citizenship through compassion and consideration of others, complying with the rules, encouraging empathy, anti-bullying, and being responsible for their actions in the classroom. I know some are here, so I'm going to read the names of all of the students, but if you are here, please come up. Stand here in front, and then Angela will give you your certificate, and then as you're here, you can take a photo, and we'll all be in the picture too. So that'll be cool. The ones who aren't here, Angela will mail them their certificates. And also, I want to welcome any Fountain Hills Unified District staff or administrators or teachers or anybody that's here to come up and join the students. So I'm going to start with January. We started with half a year. We didn't get to go back. These are Stellar Students of the Month for McDowell Mountain, Liliana Perla and Henry Good. For Fountain Hills Middle School, Zoe Jagazinski and Jacob Markle. They are here. Thank you. From the high school, we have Deshaun Rivera and Bella Garman. So after you get your certificate, just come right up here, and the others will join you. Thank you. For February, we have from McDowell Mountain, Kellen Bryant and Casey DeHaan. Fountain Hills Middle School, Alex Page and Gia Ivy and Kenzie Gibbon. And from Fountain Hills High, Colton Marshall and Kayla Thorne. And last, we are doing March. So from McDowell Mountain, we have Emma Tobias and Matthew Walters. Okay, Matthew. We've got from middle school, Kason Pitts and Nevaeh Baxter. All right. And then from the high school, Tyler Thurlow and Josie Sand. So come on right up here.
They don't behave any better than we do.
Good job. We will. We go. Then let's get a little closer to the picture, and the council guys can do it too. All right? Cheese. Look over here.
Nothing but the best down there. Budget.
It is. That's
Downhill from here.
all right. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. We miss that. Thank you. Our next item is the presentation. Tonight, we're having our monthly update by Captain Kratzer. He's making his way up here now. Thank you, Captain. Good one.
My monthly updates are getting popular here. I know. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I just wanted to give my monthly update here. One of the things I was planning on talking about tonight, I was going to highlight a shoplifting arrest and good detective work that the detectives did on a case. And I'm going to start with that, but then I'll briefly touch on the fatal bicycle hit and run accident that we had and just give an update. I think most people have heard about it and heard that an arrest was made, but I'll just talk about that briefly after I highlight the shoplifting arrest. So I don't get a lot of opportunity to spotlight the work that our detectives do here in Fountain Hills, but they really do a good job, and there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes that that they do on a day-to-day basis, and arrests that are made and cases that are solved that most people don't hear about. A lot of them are property crimes or person crimes that aren't in the media or anything like that. But this case involved a person who was shoplifting from the local Target here in town. Within a matter of 21 days, they hit the Fountain Hills Target 6 times for over $11,000 in electronics and goods. So in addition to that, our detectives worked with the loss prevention at Target, and we've got a really great relationship with them, and they're really top-notch But they pieced together that the same suspect was involved in several shopliftings at the Talking Sticks target that Salt River PD has jurisdiction over, as well as some targets in Gilbert and Mesa. So in total, in that month period, the same suspect was responsible for about $20,000 in shoplifting of electronics. So our detectives worked with the target loss prevention. They were able to identify the suspect by the suspect using his credit card for a small purchase when he was shoplifting larger items. So they were able to piece that together, locate the suspect. Good old-fashioned detective work. They were able to get a search warrant to put a tracking device on the suspect's vehicle. They were able to locate him at his residence in Mesa and make an arrest. So on May 13th, they arrested the suspect for the shopliftings. They did an interview with him. He admitted to all of the shopliftings and admitted also to selling all the merchandise that he stole on local social media sites. So he admitted to having a drug addiction, and that's why he was stealing all of the merchandise. He was stealing like the Nest thermostats and the Roomba vacuums, all those high-end goods, and selling them for pennies on the dollar. So our detectives worked, though, really good with the Gilbert Police, Mesa Police, Salt River PD, Target, and just worked in collaboration with them to, we took charge of the case and we submitted and booked the suspect on the charges. He was booked on 9 counts of shoplifting, which were separate from Gilbert and Mesa. So Gilbert and Mesa submitted their own charges, but we booked him on 9 counts of shoplifting, 7 of which were felonies. And then we also charged him with organized retail theft, which is a class 4 felony. And then there's a pending trafficking and stolen property count that's coming. And he is still in custody, which is a good sign because he's bound over. And he also had 5 outstanding arrest warrants for shoplifting, 4 for shoplifting, 1 for robbery, and had drug paraphernalia on him at the time of arrest. And, you know, surprisingly was very forthcoming on why he did it and how many he did. So I just wanted to provide an update. I don't get to tell you guys too often the work the detectives do, but I thought this was a case that was worth mentioning for highlighting what they do. And then I'll move on to this fatal hit and run accident of the bicyclist. It was really tragic. And just give a quick update. I'm certain at this point, any resident of Fountain Hills has probably heard about it. So this happened on Tuesday, May 25th, a week ago. Estimated that it occurred between 5:30 and 6:30 hours in the morning. Bicyclist was traveling on McDowell Mountain Park Road at about milepost 1.5 when she was struck from a car from behind. The vehicle didn't stay. The way that the bicyclist was found was a passerby on a bicycle noticed bike parks in the area and went past and then decided to just turn around to see if there was more bike parts or what was going on. So he turned around and found actually the road, the shoulder kind of goes down into a ravine and saw a bike and a bicyclist down. So he called 911, deputies responded. Unfortunately, the bicyclist was deceased on scene. And then our detectives, our vehicular crimes detectives, come out for any serious or fatal accidents. So they responded. And our detectives did a great job of within 2 days having an arrest made and identifying the suspect and making an arrest. That was in part due to great witnesses. So nobody actually saw the incident occur, but there was a very alert park attendant and most of those are volunteers that stay there and camp and then volunteer at the front gate. So there was a park volunteer that was at the front and saw a truck pull in, who the driver got out and was working on the front end of the vehicle. And she just thought it was odd, but didn't think much of it, didn't know about the accident. And then later on, when details came out about the incident, she reported that to detectives. And then there was some residential surveillance footage that captured the vehicle going through the roundabout up in Rio Verde, leaving Rio Verde, going out into Scottsdale. And it was really clear photo of the vehicle. And it went in line with parts that were found on scene. The park attendant's testimony as to what occurred and description of the vehicle, as well as the damage on the front correlating with where the damage on a vehicle would be if it struck a bicyclist in that manner. So the detectives worked 2.5 days nonstop. trying to piece together all the information. And again, without the help from the public, I don't think they would have solved it that quickly. We think they would have eventually, but we had great tips from the public. And that's really what solidified it, is the pictures being put out and the public calling in with some information on potentially who owned or may have been involved. And that helped lead to an arrest. The suspect lived in the Queen Creek area, and he was arrested on the 27th and booked into jail for the hit and run fatal accident. So they're still working. So our detectives, I wanted to thank the council. Vice Mayor Spellich really wanted to take the opportunity to bring those detectives in and thank them. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it. They're pretty busy. That squad is very busy, but they were very thankful for the request for the council to bring them in and honor them and thank them. So real quick, I just wanted to say, the request was at least, say who was on that squad. The case agent was the main detective, but I think Councilmember Vice Mayor Spellich knows as his time as a detective in homicide that those units really work hand in hand together. And although one person's the case agent, they're all working collectively to solve the case. So Sergeant Dave Taylor is the supervisor. Detective Forrest Wright was our case agent who made the arrest. Detective Jason Porter, who I'm glad to say used to be a District 7 deputy here and moved on to Vehicular Crimes Unit. Deputy Billy Gardner, Detective Sean Horning, and Detective Kate Ashby, who also comes out in here and will work in District 7 on occasion, helping out on patrol, and then Detective Caleb Frey. So we just wanted to take a minute to thank them at the request of council and town manager, and they were very happy for the town recognizing them and wanting to do that. So that's all I have for the update. I know it's a busy schedule tonight, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them and answer them.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, do you want to?
Yeah, Cap, as I said, I reached out to you and the mayor and the town manager. These cases are extremely, extremely difficult to solve. You basically have nothing to go on. And these detectives did an unbelievably great job. And they're very hard investigations to solve. They're hard investigations to get charged. And the work that they did gathering the surveillance videos from the private property out there in Rio Verde, Town Verde, and everything, and how quick it was solved and everything, really hats off to them, everybody involved. It's really an unbelievable job.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to them as well.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anybody have questions or comments about that or anything for Captain? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're sorry to hear that. I know an officer was killed in a terrible car accident, and then there was another one just a little while ago. So, our respect and thoughts go to you all. I know it hits you hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next item is call to the public, where you're welcome to come up. I know you know this, but anything that's not on the agenda, we can't respond to. And of course, the reason for that is so that people that come to meetings know what will be discussed. But you're certainly welcome to come up and talk. So, and you have some that came in that we want to give you a tally of too.
Do you want me to do that first? or-
Sure, why not? Whatever you're ready for. No, that's fine. Yeah.
We'll do the public first.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is Stephanie Bjorkman.
Sorry, I'm short. Hi, my name is Stephanie Bjorkman. I'm a second-generation business owner of Sammy Fine Jewelry, which has been a successful business in Fountain Hills for over 3 decades. First off, I want to state my disapproval with the Town Council's new sign ordinance. There is no doubt that we need our signs and absolutely no reason why we can't work together to come up with a professional way to keep them and make everyone happy. I'm here tonight to not only stand up for local business, realtors, churches, restaurants, charities, lost pets, family gatherings, and yard sales, but also because I grew up in this town. For those of you who know me and Sammy Fine Jewelry, you know that we are Fountain Hills' #1 fan. My store sponsors hundreds of local charities, school fundraisers, and I personally coordinate some of Fountain Hills' largest free community events, such as Love in the Hills and Halloween in the Hills. I'm 41 years old and have lived and breathed this town my whole life. With decisions like the new sign ordinance, I feel that we are losing our hometown appeal. They say home is where the heart is, and your hometown is a big part of your persona. The Fountain Hills community has made me the successful businesswoman I am today. I have so many fond memories growing up here. As a kid, I could always depend on the community to help me out. Let's go back when I was 13 years old. Some of you sitting up here knew me when I was 13 years old. I wanted to be Miss Rodeo, Arizona. In order to do this, I had to get sponsors. In my cowboy boots and hat, I walked into all the small businesses in town. How do you think I found these? I didn't drive. It was signs. Not only did these businesses support me financially, but they offered to help make my dreams come true. For instance, Fountain Fashions not only sponsored all my pageant clothes, but they showed me how to walk like a model. I had over 30 local sponsors and ended up being runner-up for Miss Rodeo, Arizona. To me, this is what a hometown community is about. To me, a hometown community works with local businesses, not against them, but with them. For instance, how is it that our local Chamber of Commerce wasn't even notified about your prior sign meeting? As I've watched Fountain Hills grow, I've seen that Fountain Hills has no idea what it wants to be when it grows up. Do we want to be a hometown? Do we want to be a tourist town? Do we want to be a retirement community? One thing I do know is that the new sign ordinance sends a clear message that we no longer want to be a hometown and you no longer want to fully support local business. Search our Fountain Hills community social media with over 15,000 followers. Nobody complains or cares about the signs. My last point is obvious. How much tax revenue will the town of Fountain Hills lose by taking away the signs? I don't have to be an accountant to know that it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax money. To sum it up, I ask that the Fountain Hills Town Council, who voted for the sign ordinance, ask the mayor to consider to motion to revisit this ordinance and include it on the June 15 agenda. In addition, please add to the agenda the consideration of creating a task force of staff, residents, and businesses that will collaborate on and propose a new ordinance that will work for businesses and the community as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think, thank you, Stephanie. And we have the 3-minute timer, so please try to be aware of that a little bit. And please know, we just want to get through this. Please don't applaud if you can have that, follow that rule. We'd appreciate it. Next.
Next is Suzanne Nan.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Gina Stevens.
Good evening. I'm Gina Stevens. I live and work here in Fountain Hills. We built our home here in 1995. I am currently here to speak to you this evening because I am in opposition of the recent decision about the signs. As a person who enjoys travel and enjoys this town, and also as a professional realtor, I don't feel that this is a beneficial decision for many reasons. As someone who enjoys traveling, when I go to a new place, the signs say to me, "We're open for business. Come on in here. There's something happening over here, so come join us. You're welcome." Places with no signs get driven through and by. As a real estate agent in this town, I host a lot of open houses, and we often, almost always, will ask those who attended, "How'd you find us today? What brought you in?" And about half the people will say, "Oh, we saw your signs." Now, some of you may say, "Oh, well, you just want to make money. That's just your business." And what I would say is most of those people who say, "Oh, we just saw your signs," are trying to decide if they would like to live here and if they would like to do business here. And so in some ways that we're on the forefront of building this community, and we'd like to stay there. Right now, our signs being placed out of the roadways but not on private property are very easy. They're short-term, they're up, they're down, out of the way. If we need to approach every single homeowner and place the signs 15 feet back, they won't be seen, and it's too hard to catch all the homeowners at home at the intersections where you need to be. That would not be effective. So for personal and business reasons, I strongly encourage you to revisit the sign ordinance at the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Next one is John Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be back. The sign issue in town is not new. When I was on the town council between 2000 and 2006, it came up numerous times. However, we never eliminated the signs. And taking them back 13 feet from the curb is, for all practical purposes, eliminating them. Now, a lot of people are going to talk to you about the problems with removing them and why they're needed. So I'm not going to delve into that area. I want to focus on two issues. The first is the issue of sign safety, because I read in the Times that one of the members who voted no thought the safety issue was a big thing. I'd like to address that. In my 6 years on the town council, I never saw a report, I never heard a staff member, I never heard a police officer say that there was a safety hazard with the signs. Nobody tripped on them and fell in the roadway, cars didn't run them over. I don't think there's a safety issue. In addition, the second issue that I'd like to bring up is the idea of appearance of the council, in terms of do as I say, not as I do. The town has a lot of things in the right-of-way. The sign has most of their directional signs to the large buildings and parks in the town right-of-way. Are you going to remove them? Go down to the park. I think half those presidents' statues are in the town right-of-way. Are you going to remove them? I don't think you are. The median on Avenue of the Fountains has so much artwork and so much things right next to the road, but are you going to remove them? And the answer is no, because they are not a hazard. So I would ask the person who had the safety concerns to check with staff, look into it, because if that's the main issue, then I think that perhaps we can reverse this situation. Appearance-wise, there's also the politics of it. Frankly, politicians put up signs. People on the council put up signs. At least one of the people who voted against the signs had signs on the roadways. So you can't tell people you can't put your business signs up and then put your own political signs up. I think that sends a bad message to the community. So one person can change this, and I hope you will, because there's a lot of controversy. And finally, with respect to Councilman Friedell's question about the flat tax and holding the town harmless, I'm quite confident that we will, in fact, pass a flat personal income tax for everyone of 2.5%. And I'm also quite confident that the cities and towns will be held harmless. But more important than that, every resident of this town who pays an income tax is going to have a tax cut. It's going to go down to 2.5%. There's going to be more money in the pockets of those people, money to spend in this town, if you bring the signs back so they can find the stores to do it. Thank you.
Requesting that you don't applaud, please. Thank you.
Oh, that's the applause warning sign.
Linda Kavanaugh.
Well, he's a tough act to follow. Good evening. I'm a resident of Fountain Hills for 28 years. I was mayor for 6.5. Before that, I was many years with the Chamber Ambassadors. I was on their board, and I was 2 years as their chair. Shop local. The Chamber of Commerce had a campaign years ago that has continued to this day, and it's shop local. It wasn't just to be trendy, but it was for the survival of our small business community. Back then, we residents rallied behind it, the snowbirds joined in, all of us committed to shop local. And it's paid off big time with lots of choices for us, for stores and restaurants. But that campaign did more than just help the business community because, as you know, this town runs on sales tax money. The more successful a business, the bigger the town coffers, and the town is able to do more for its residents, more than just pay the bills, but maintain this great quality of life that is so important to us. I was actually on the last big sign committee, and it was proven back then through studies that signs increase foot traffic. They bring in new customers. They help businesses that are off the beaten trail and are necessary in this town for wayfinding, especially for realtors. Years ago, the town was a mess with signs. We all agreed that something had to be done. Lots of compromises were made for A-frames, garage signs, lost pet signs, and even the realtors, they limited the amount of signs going to open houses. The restrictions that you're imposing on the businesses will make it all but impossible for most to use any type of sign. Of course, they could use sign walkers. Do you think that would look any better? After years of compromise and a system that's working great for anyone, why would you impose these new sign restrictions and without even consulting the very businesses that will be affected? Rescind these sign restrictions before it's too late. Shop local is something we can all get behind, but you cannot shop local if there's no place to shop. Standing firm on the restrictions will cost the town jobs, tax revenue, and consumer shopping choices. Thank you.
Mayor? I want to ask council a question. Am I allowed to ask council a question without responding directly?
Yes.
Just to clear something up, I've heard this a couple of times this evening, and I think this is not to say we should or should not have the sign ordinance, just a question of fact. It's been mentioned that signs have to be 13 feet back, and it's been mentioned they have to be 15 feet back. My understanding is that is not correct. They just can't be in the right-of-way. Is that correct?
Mayor and council, that is my understanding as well.
Thank you.
Next is Rosemary Powell.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Rosemary Powell. I'm a registered nurse, certified medical support, clinical hypnotherapist. I'd like you all now just to close your eyes. No, entertain me now. Just close your eyes. Visualize beautiful A-frame signs, real estate agents that are prospering and bringing wonderful citizens to our town. Visualize the restaurant you wanted to go to, or one you hadn't heard of yet. Visualize Sun-Baked Goods has got something on sale. Visualize you need something to furnish a room. Quality Consignment's got her sign. She's there. Visualize tax revenues from people who can find the little out-of-the-way places. Visualize the prosperity of this town. And if you need help visualizing that, I will give 3 free hypnosis sessions to any member on the council. Thank you.
Next is Betsy Lavoy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Betsy Lavoy, resident of Fountain Hills since 1978. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the business and nonprofit community of Fountain Hills. I understand since the May 18th vote of the new sign ordinance that we have learned the public right-of-way is very different throughout our town, and have learned, for example, the Bashas Plaza has private property that goes right up to the street, as well as Plaza Fountainside has private property that goes right up to the sidewalk. However, those are two of the only plazas that are likely to be unaffected by this new sign ordinance. The public right-of-way often has a setback of up to 15 feet onto private property in other areas. The new sign ordinance is extremely detrimental to businesses who are not in those two plazas, specifically on Parkview and in other areas of our town. I look forward to our meeting with the town and the government affairs liaison with SAR this week, and I've met with 5 of the 7 of you. I appreciate the effort to come together and collaborate for a better solution. I also understand that the town council is willing to look at exceptions for some of the businesses. However, herein lies the problem. This is a new hindrance on our business community with one more burden to have to overcome after a pandemic year and moving into a slower summer season. This could also be a burden on our town staff. They have to locate now the public right-of-way and private property lines for each and every business or nonprofit inquiry who wants that exception. We have brand new businesses here in town that just opened that do not have their permanent signs yet, and they rely 100% on a temporary sign. These business owners are our residents of our town. They've invested in our town to keep their business local, and they need your support, which includes asking the mayor to put on the agenda to revoke that sign ordinance and put together a task force that includes the business community, that includes the nonprofit community, and a wider, more broad representation of our community to write a more business-favorable sign ordinance. I spoke with hundreds of businesses in our town personally, as well as the data to support the disapproval of this sign ordinance. The data we received from our petition and our survey show 627 supporters to reverse that May 18th sign ordinance vote. In the survey, we asked on a scale of 1 to 5 how important the temporary signs are for their business, 1 being not important at all, and 5 being extremely important. 77% said the temporary signs are extremely important, with another 19% stating important to very important, for a total of 96% stating it is crucial for their business. The research data also shows 87% stated that more than half of their business walks through the door because of the temporary sign. It was stated at the May 18th meeting, the amount of business that walks through the door due to temporary sign is overblown. But do you have the data to support that statement? We have the data at the Chamber of Commerce that proves the temporary signs are crucial for businesses. And it's not just the businesses. What about our nonprofit groups, like was mentioned with the Lost Pets community, high schoolers that might need to do a last-minute fundraiser, directional signs for the real estate professionals, directional signs for events, not just our events, but all events. We already get complaints about parking. What if we had no directional signs in public right-of-way? Are we ready for that? And how many complaints did the town receive regarding the temporary signs? Was it 10? Was it 15? Was it 25? Where is the data to support what your constituents would like for our town? Even on social media, the support is 18-1 in favor of revoking the sign ordinance that was voted on May 18th. I have data that supports the disapproval with hundreds, not a few. As I was doing our outreach to our community, I came across many businesses who had already been visited by Councilmember Jerry Friedel. Thank you for doing that, and I don't know if you're able to address that. I'm almost done, and I'm hoping you can. But if you can share your results and your data, that would be awesome for everyone to hear.
Are you almost done?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. Before this new sign ordinance, there were already laws in place that stated temporary signs could not be placed in a median. There's already laws in place stating that there's a certain amount of signs per area. Perhaps a look at code enforcement is prudent instead of just outlawing temporary signs in public right-of-ways. Please make a motion during this meeting to revoke that prior approved sign ordinance so that we can create a more business-friendly solution. Thank you.
Can I ask council a question? Am I at liberty to respond to her query of me?
The statute at issue says that at the conclusion of call to the public, individual council members may respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future council agenda. So unless it's a response to criticism or direction to staff or future placement, think the answer is probably no, based on that, unless it falls into one of those three categories.
Next is Chris Enos.
I hadn't actually planned on speaking, but after all that, I got it. All right, so here we go. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But it's a lousy way to make a statute, especially if that statute is based on public safety. Now, had the opportunity, I never thought I'd come in and talk to a town board again, but here I am. And I was asked to look at this law. And the law says, well, in order to preserve the public safety, we have to make this sign ordinance. And then the sign ordinance, I started looking at the other provisions of it, not just the ones that were modified. Ones that say, well, aesthetics are important, all right? Who judges what the aesthetics are? Who judges whether or not a sign is pretty, whether or not a temporary sign is really cool looking, whether it's necessary? Who makes that judgment? It's not stated in the statute as you modified it. Your statute, respectfully, is vague. The distances in the right-of-ways are arbitrary, and they're rather capricious. Those are bad words for lawyers to hear, I know. But it's something that I'm simply saying that I concur with the other speakers from Sammy's, the Kavanaughs, certainly the Chamber of Commerce. This is not something that you should have hastily considered. I don't say that you necessarily did, but I haven't seen and I haven't heard of any data to support the public safety argument that is supposedly at the basis of a sign ordinance. It is probably a good idea, since this is a hometown, probably a good idea if you reconsidered this, just say, okay, well, it was a 4-3 vote, not exactly an overwhelming mandate. Reconsider it, bring in the Chamber of Commerce, bring in other stakeholders, not just the large ones, but also the small businesses, and take a look at it again and see if we really do have a need to legislate this type of thing. So that's what I have, and I would respectfully suggest you take that approach to make everybody on board with what I'm sure was a well-intentioned proposal.
Steve Vargo.
Hi, my name is Steve Vargo. I've been a resident of Fountain Hills since 1991. I own MCO Realty here in town. I have approximately 35 agents that I have heard from pertaining to this temporary sign ordinance, or at least the temporary signs and the removal of them from within the right-of-ways. Most of my agents believe that this is going to hinder their ability to represent their clients properly in terms of the open houses, because they are assured that many of the homeowners, once they are asked if you can place an open house sign, anywhere from, as we have found out already, and it runs for anywhere from 8 feet to 15 feet for the public right-of-way, of which you have to actually go in and look at the original plats to determine what that public right-of-way actually is. They also view it as something that's going to potentially could limit their ability to earn the income that they are used to earning. So, again, I'm just asking that the council reconsider this ordinance as it was approved, and please revise it as quickly as feasible. Thank you.
Tyrone Meredith.
Hi, everybody. So excited to be in front of you this evening. I guess I'm an outsider looking in. 4 years ago, I found Fountain Hills because I was looking for a house to buy. And as anyone knows who's looking for a house in Fountain Hills, you ain't getting one. So I moved down the hill to 110th and Shea, but I always come back. I would patronize the restaurants. I love to eat, and I found some because of signs. I did not know the area. I did not know where I was going. I was driving around and, hey, I see that spot. I'm going to go check it out. I love the way that the individual sign was. And I would go eat there and I would just keep coming back. 4 years later, I had an option. I was blessed with State Farm to open up my own insurance company. And guess where I decided to open up that business? Fountain Hills. Now, I'll be honest with you. My last month March, before I actually opened in April, I wanted to do something different with my office. So I wanted to find just some unique type of furniture. I did not know where any consignment shops was. I know I could get on my phone, but I didn't. You know how I found a couple of consignment shops? They're signs. So as an individual who is blessed to be able to be a part of this community, I hope you guys adopt me fully one day. But till then, I just want to say from my personal opinion that the signs are welcome to those who don't know the area. It is an opportunity for us to continue to keep growing this community, not just business-wise, but also with those who are blessed to afford to live here. And I just think that, and I did not mention the fact that when I was looking, me and my realtor, when we came up here, because she was not from Fountain Hills either, we found the houses we was looking at, the open houses, signs. So I feel like I should not voice my opinion, but at the same time, I'm just going to say that, guys, I just want to give you my personal story on how important the signs in this community was for me. It's the reason why I'm here, and I thank you guys so much.
We are listening very respectfully, and I really appreciate everybody's input, but I mean, I'm just asking you not to applaud because that's the rules of how we run a meeting, so please don't applaud, and we really appreciate what you're all saying. Thank you.
Frank Quinn.
Good evening. First off, I want to mention the applause part as a way of a small community to be able to respond in some fast way. I actually, to get to some data, I actually took the time, and all the applauses were done in less than 8 seconds by the time they got back to their seat. So on a time basis, it didn't affect anybody. And I think on a small community basis, it's a way of saying that we support these people for coming out after work and having the guts to come up here and speak to you guys. I'm also an outsider. I'm in the sign business. I'm in the digital sign business, but I don't have any gain to be here. I don't make A-frame signs. I don't sell A-frame signs. And I too looked at one point to move here, and I'm still looking at the possibility of moving my business here. I do want to mention that I do like the tone of the whole council. And the idea of all of us coming together and looking for a solution that works for everybody and works for small business. So I thank you for that intent and that interest to reach out to say, how do we all work together? How do we work together to bring a solution to this where everybody's happy? So I appreciate that sentiment and that intent to bring that forward. In small business, I've been in small business my whole life, and I will say that I have friends that work for large companies, Amgen, Pfizer, many companies, and they go, you know, I never got affected by the first crisis in 2008. Never was affected. I got a paycheck every week, and I went home. I worked for a big company, and it was great because 2008 came, and you know, I'm sorry that you small businesses really got crushed, but we did just fine. I mean, I got the same paycheck every single week. We had problems, but my company took the problems. And for small businesses, they took the problems. Small businesses went through that 2008 financial crisis. And then here again, we have the crisis of the pandemic, and all of them here in this room went through that same, where they didn't get a check, and they were asked to close down, and they did just that. And they were suffering. They suffered a long time. And now that we're reopening and they're finally getting a chance to recover, I think we should look at saying, how can we support, how can we all work together? How can we support these small businesses? And we say the word small business, I don't even like the word. It's because it makes us distant. It makes it vague and ambiguous. These are families. These are people that at the end of the day, when we all go home and clock out, they're still worrying about their business. The lady who owns the pizza shop, who's still thinking about how to stay in business and make payroll by the end of the week, and how her feet hurt, and the guy who's going out there to pick up his A-frame sign at 8 o'clock at night so he can put it back out the next morning. It's the small business person who gave up the job, finally saved their money after all these years, and then decide, you know, I'm going to take my savings. This is my after-tax money, and I'm going to find a community to invest in, and I'm going to put everything I got into it, and they chose Fountain Hills to put their money here. That's their savings. That's their after taxpayers' money, their whole life. This is where they chose to come and put their savings and put their life behind. And when we go to their business and say, hey, I'm glad you made it through the pandemic, and I'm glad that you made it through the, through the crisis in 2008, and I'm sitting here, I don't want you to recognize that I'm one of the ones that was trying to put you out with that small A-frame sign. I was one of the ones that didn't want you to have that, and that, we want to make note of that. Anyway, I wanted to mention that
Sir, could you wrap up pretty quick?
Okay, yeah, so just in terms of study, in terms of numbers, being the sign, we're a member of the Arizona Sign Association, we're members of the International Sign Association, we're a member of the Western Conference, so we do a lot of numbers and data too. I haven't studied any data here, but I will say there's a nice study done by the University of San Diego, which studied A-frame signs and says that the effect on small businesses is between 8.4 to 44.5% increase in their business. So there's a number that you can grab. If you need the data to make numbers and make decisions, it's there, it's out there. So I ask you to look at that.
Sir,
was that?
you. Yeah, we only have the 3 minutes, so.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Crystal Kavanaugh.
Well, believe it or not, I'm not going to talk about signs, but I do agree with all of their comments on it and support that cause. I am back once again to talk about detox units. And why do I continue to bring it up? Why do I talk about it and call to public and to our town council? I know your official statement is that there have not been any formal applications for detox units, yet we do know there were inquiries about this made in January, which resulted in staff time, research, and discussions over the months that followed regarding zoning for such units. I bring this up because I want to continue to make the residents of Fountain Hills aware of the strong probability that this topic will be addressed again in the future and that they need to be familiar with how this impacts our town. I do not want people to be as blindsided with a future detox decision as they have been with the council's sign ordinance decision. Without a specific zoning ordinance prohibiting these detox units in our commercial areas here, applications for such units will occur, and in addition, the number of sober houses in our neighborhoods will continue to grow if these detox units are allowed. Absentee landlords will continue to rent out their houses for the big bucks paid by the owners of the detox units without regard to other neighbors or property values. The impact of substance abuse detox centers on nearby home prices, according to some studies, has been associated with an 8% reduction in your home price that's actually magnified to as much as a 17% reduction in your home price for units that treat opiate addictions. Our primary residence is perhaps the greatest single investment that an individual makes. Location, location, location is the ever-present concern for many wise home buyers who research the community, the school system, and crime statistics. Imagine doing the smart research, purchasing your home or business, and then finding out about detox units or sober houses in your neighborhood after you're invested in this home and community. What these outside detox unit owners are doing by attempting to locate in our community is essentially pimping out the scenic beauty and location of Fountain Hills. Outside substance abusers fly into Sky Harbor, are picked up, and then come to beautiful scenic Fountain Hills to detox for multiple days. They then may be located to one of the for-profit sober houses in our neighborhoods. Detox units will feed the need to increase the numbers of these sober houses. Once here, you do not get rid of these sober houses either, as they are protected by government policies. We already have these houses here in Fountain Hills, but we want even more. This contributes nearly nothing to the town of Fountain Hills, but we utilize and put more demands on our limited resources. Another consequence of locating these overnight detox units in sober houses in Fountain Hills is that oftentimes the clients leave early and are discharged before their successful completion. Then what will happen? Please take steps to assure that the town of Fountain Hills is doing everything possible to avoid turning us into a detox destination. Thank you.
Mark Bierman. Not sure if I'm saying that right.
Madam Mayor, council members, you did say the name right, so. My wife and I are, I should say Bridget, and I are residents of Fountain Hills. We are the owners of the Goal Agency. And how did we find Fountain Hills and find our house? It was signs. It was signs. How we found some of the restaurants in this town, it was signs. And this is a very special town. I'll tell you that right now, too. It has a hometown feel. And I'm going to step back in time now. And my wife and I are from Minnesota. We were home builders for 25 plus years, owned a real estate company and a land development company. What was the number one reason that people came to our 12 model homes? It was signs, over and over and over again. You know, and it wasn't about helping that real estate agent or just that home builder create a sale. It was about the 100 plus individuals that built that home and their families. That's what we experienced, but it's more than just them 100 people. It is that mortgage company, it is that title company, it is that insurance agency that also filled in all the pieces behind that. It touches a lot. That is just one business model. And there's many other business models just like that in Fountain Hills. It goes way deeper than just a sign, if you really want to look at it that way. Thank you so much.
Stephanie Sandoval.
You guys are all so serious. Hi, I'm an outsider too. I want to say I love your town. I am a business owner in your town, and I'm also a property owner in your town. I am the franchise owner for HomeSmart International. I manage 300 agents. 60 of them are in Fountain Hills. I want to speak against your sign ordinance. It's very harming not only to our consumers that are trying to buy homes in your community, as well as to our agents. So I speak against it. I also want to share with you something. I moved here, I bought this location 4 years ago now. I was concerned when I moved up here, I don't live up here, I'm sorry, when I moved up here and I drove up here, I noticed lots of empty commercial spaces, guys. I live in a town where we have no empty commercial. I live in Queen Creek. You harm business owners. What do they want to do? They do not want to come to your town. They do not want to open businesses. So I speak against it. I hope you will add it to your agenda June 14th or June 15th. And that's my reasoning.
Thanks. Thank you. Dory Wittrick.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I think I might be the last, I'm not sure, so we'll see. My name is Dory Wittrick. I've lived here since 1985. I own Remax Sun Properties. I also serve on quite a few boards around town, a lot of which you already know about. I will be the first to admit, though, that real estate has been a very good for agents this past year, for companies, for owners. However, I would also like to point out that it's only been 9 years and 6 months, I can almost quote the days, since November of 2011. The very bottom of the worst real estate market this country has seen in 80 years. And it was a tough 3 years leading up to that point in November of 2011. So for most of the past decade, real estate has been a pretty difficult deal for both the industry and our clients. And everyone in this community is our client. And COVID has made the past year for our businesses and restaurants the nightmare of a lifetime. During those very dark years back after the last recession or during the last recession, real estate agents did everything they could to help their clients through difficult times. People needed to sell. And countless thousands of hours were logged in open houses. It's no secret that many people find their way to Fountain Hills as a tourist because of our natural beauty and our fountain. But I can also tell you, from many years of experience, that hundreds, if not thousands, of would-be tourists come out here without a thought in their mind when waking in the morning, but ending the day with purchasing a piece of real estate because they happened upon a sign on a street corner directing them to a friendly, helpful agent who explained the community, the process, and the inventory to them enough so that they could get comfortable with the purchase, or at least to make a decision that Fountain Hills was going to be their next home. And I guarantee there are probably people in this room who did just that as well. I talked to a number of them on the phone today, of my clients. Didn't have a thought in the world when they woke up that morning that they were going to be moving. And they happened into one of our open houses or our offices. I wasn't at the last council meeting. However, I have watched the videos of it several times over, and I'm shocked that our council has made such a drastic decision to affect so many lives and livelihoods when it doesn't seem at all necessary. But to be honest, I'm not even sure you've really corrected the problem. You were concerned, oftentimes, I've heard this, about the ideological signs in the yards. And they're still going to be there, although not as many. But business people and realtors aren't dealing in ideologies. They're dealing in life situations where something is being purchased or sold and livelihoods are at stake. These business people make our community a better place. And if you have any doubt of that, just take a look at the next fundraiser or any fundraiser in the town, and you will see the names of all these business people as supporters for our youth, our seniors, and our families. We ask you to reconsider what you have done here. We've crafted good policy before. We can do it again, and we ask that you allow us that opportunity.
Terry Triber? Triber? I had it right the first time.
I've never done this before. My name is Terry Triber. I'm the owner of Sunbaked Food for the Soul. And someone was telling me about the signs. My sign, I need my sign. Simple as that. My building sits way in the back, and I'll bet you I could talk to most of the people right now. They don't even know I exist. And I hear that every single day. And then when people come in and they say, "Oh my God, I saw your sign." That's how we knew we were there. I have one sign for Saturday that says, "Yay, it's donut day." Everyone knows that it's donut day. And they come in because they saw the sign. So I know a lot of you guys don't worry about that, but I'm at work at 2:30 in the morning making donuts or pastries or quiches and all the things that I make. I put my sign out, they know I'm open, 7 o'clock. I know you're still open because I saw your sign out, because sometimes I forget to take the sign in while I'm still there, and the bell rings out. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm closed." "Oh, but your sign was out." So I'm like, okay, so I bring the sign in. But I need my sign. I sit too far back, and then I heard there was a statement made, "Well, just tell her to put her donut sign close to the building." If that was the case, I wouldn't need a sign if they could see me. I need the sign so they can see me. But why would you want to take the signs away? Why don't you come up with a resolution? Instead of just taking the sign away, come and talk to us personally and say, "Hey, what do you think we could do?" Because I have a suggestion. I do. I say, if we all as tenants in the building, why don't we have one sign at the end of every street that has, "We'll pay for it," and put the sign up that's telling what's down that way? Because I'm on Parkview, 16842 East Parkview Avenue. So I'm on Parkview, and my building is way, way back. You just passed me right up. So I have a sign out. I need my sign. And I was really offended because I don't see my sign has never hurt anyone. No one has ever said, "Oh my God, I tripped over your sign," you know. But I'm just saying, I don't understand what the big deal is about the sign. You don't let us put flags out. You don't let us do anything. It's like you're so hard on the business owners. It's bad enough when we have a great function. You cut off the parking. People can't park. Then my regular customers won't come in because they don't want to go through all this travel. And then the parking lot is empty because no one can park there because it's business, but no one's coming in there. So I put my sign out so that people could see that I'm over here. Hey, I'm over here. So my sign, I need my sign. Think about what you're saying. This is my livelihood. I've been here living in Fountain Hills for 8 years, and I've had my business for 5. I need my sign. Just rethink about it. Put yourself in our shoes. And maybe you don't own a business. I don't know. But think about it. Just don't take our signs without a solution.
Patrick Russo.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I agree with everything everyone has said here tonight. I came to talk about something else, but that is very, very important. My sign, actually, the front of my building doesn't even face the road. It faces another building. And I knew that going in. But what I would like to talk about is the new business that I'm looking at my building. And I'm surprised that you allowed a warehouse to go into the middle of town, our beautiful town, a block away from Avenue of the Fountains, which is the heartbeat, to me, of this town. And now there's a warehouse a block away, and they want to put their loading dock in the front of the building. First of all, warehouses need to be out behind Target, I would think, not in the middle of your beautiful town. And I hope you're not going to allow them to put this loading dock in the front of the building. I mean, you think signs are ugly out by the street? Safety? I don't know if you've been over there. Do you know where it is? Russo Salon over here once, yeah. And the bowling alley building? A semi is going to have to make the sharpest turn there. It's not safe at all. And then when you've got the fairs going on, you've got trucks coming in and out a block away. I'm just shocked and surprised that this was allowed to happen in the town, a warehouse there. So please do not let them put that loading zone in the front of the building. Thank you.
Chris Brandt.
Madam Mayor and Council, I've lived in the same house with myself and my wife since 1983. And like most of you on the council here, I'm not a business person at all. But I am really shocked that you would actually, particularly at this present time, to vote for this situation. Even before the pandemic, the businesses were in trouble. I look from a lot over onto the Target's group of buildings, and so many of them are empty. And in the Fry's position is also very vacant. So to discourage business signs going up does not make any sense to me at all. Is it a power situation? I don't know. But really, to discourage our businesses, and maybe you don't agree with that, but I really am surprised by a number of people's votes here. And I'm hoping that you will consider it further, and after discussion with businesses, that this will be changed. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Ed Stizza.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. I'm here to talk about the crosswalk, but I just want to say it's fantastic to see all these people out talking about the signs so that you guys can really see and understand what the public and the businesses want. There's still that disconnect. I think more than ever, this shows that it would be nice to have some sort of public forum I mean, everybody keeps saying the same thing so that everybody can start to certainly talk about some of these needs that are reality. And certainly everybody has talked about that. So I'm not going to speak anymore on the signs other than hopefully you'll take a strong look at reversing, the decisions you've made. So anyway, with that being said, Justin graciously met with me as you requested, Mayor, and we went over the crosswalk issues. And I can tell you right now, I still feel the same way, if not more strongly, that this might not be a good idea. This area where this crosswalk is going to go, and I understand the concept is important, but you are about to blow your dark sky situation, or I mean, our existence as a dark sky community right out the window. And this is going to set a precedent for more crosswalks, more walker-friendly type areas. And so this one's kind of going to be the first. There's 4 street lights going up there. And those lights are going to be on all throughout the night. And I suggested to Justin possibly look at a timer situation with this. Obviously, there's legalities with this possibility, but somebody's really going to get hurt there. And I also suggested that take a look at Panorama and Quinto. Those seem to be more natural areas for a crosswalk. I know that the town paid $80,000 to this design firm, but I've been sitting out there several times and watched the traffic flow. I don't know how you can barely get people to use the roundabout correctly. People that are used to going on a truck route, we just had somebody killed up on Rio Verde, going out to Rio Verde. You're going to have the same problem here. And this needs to be relooked at. I just hope not to stop the project, but certainly to take a good, strong look at all the details. Again, it's about the details. And luckily, everybody's speaking about sign details tonight. So hopefully, that's better understood. I did want to say one thing about the sign. Is the new Panhandlers sign in the right-of-way? Is it? That's over at Shea and Saguaro? It is? So it's in the right-of-way. I was just curious. So thank you. Hopefully you relook at the crosswalk. Thank you, guys.
That's it. That's all the requests to speak. I did want to report that we received several comments online before 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we had 13 opposed to the sign ordinance. I've supplied a copy of each of those to the council, and in the spirit of keeping everything short, I would like to read the names off of those that submitted that were opposed. Melinda Stanton, Pal Zinn, Cherie Koss, Suzanne Isaacs, Aaron Holman, Michael Gant, Dr. Nancy Gaylord-Dillard, Peter Donzello, Lisa Murray, Dean Warner, Sandy Cashin, Paige Lorenzen, and Tammy Bell. And then we also received 2 in support of the sign ordinance from Sherry Lynn James and Fred James.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming and letting us know what you, excuse me?
Can I ask a question of our attorney?
Sure.
Now, I'm allowed to give direction to the town at the end of the
Yes.
call of the public, correct? I have 3 things on my list. Can we look into the loading dock issue in town and see what's going on with that? And for the crosswalk, can we look at the height of those lights and see if there's a possibility of a baffle being put on those so that they won't bother any of the residents?
As a center course, we always have shields. So all of our lights that we would have at traffic intersections always are shielded, not just because of the dark sky requirement, but because of the neighborhood. We want to make sure that they're not getting the bleed from the light.
Okay. And then based on the concerns that were brought up here this evening on the sign stuff, is there any direction we can have the town take a look at to see if there's any improvements that we can make on that?
Well, Mayor and Council, I do know that, as Mayor mentioned, that we have a couple of meetings that are scheduled with some stakeholder groups, et cetera. So there may be some improvements that come out from that, or there may be some findings that come out from those discussions. In terms of if there's an item for future council direction, obviously the council approved the sign ordinance, so if there's a uniform desire from the council, I'm sure we could bring that forward. It would just be a matter of what's the collective desire of the town council.
Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Parliamentary procedure, I motion to have the vote rescinded, or have the sign ordinance rescinded and brought back and looked at.
Well, it's not agendized for action on this.
Doesn't need to be. Robert Rules of Order lets me have a parliamentary procedure to
Yeah, Mayor and Council, if we're going to take action on something under Arizona law, it has to be on the agenda.
Again, the reasoning is just like it is for all calls to the public. There are people who did not come to this meeting because they didn't expect this to be a topic. So to take action on it wouldn't be fair one way or the other to anybody that was interested in this topic or any topic, which is why we don't discuss. It's an open meeting law. Thank you. That is that. Thanks again, like I said, and you're heard. You know, we have more plans for this week and going beyond, and also to clarify what we'll look at going forward, what it is and what it wasn't, and just appreciate it. Our next item is the consent agenda. Unless anybody would like to remove that item, could I get a motion? So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Our regular agenda item, do you guys need a break or anything, or just keep going on? Okay.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah, great.
Huh?
5.
Well, it's going to take 5. Stop the frivolity. We're getting started here. Our first item on the regular agenda is a public hearing about the budget, so I'll call the public hearing to order. We'll hear and we'll be able to comment.
Without a further ado, I know we're getting late in the hour. I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Finance Director David Pock. You recall last month, the council adopted the tentative budget. As you know, the budget is our work plan for the next year that basically identifies all the spending priorities of the council. We went through quite a bit of from the time that we had our council retreat in February, and then we also had several we had a council workshop on this, and then we also had an open house for the public on the budget as well. Then I'll turn it over to Mr. Pock, who has a very brief presentation.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's final exam night for budget, so you've made it. I was going to make a joke about the town having a budget before the state, but our representative has left. So I won't say anything about it. All right. All right. So just to get things started, we do have a couple things to take care of to get the town's final budget adopted, as well as the implementation policy, which is up next. So we're going to kind of roll these in together. But before we get started, I wanted to start off with the Tpt Collections for the last month. Our April numbers came in, and it's actually the highest ever for month collections. So typically April collections are a little higher, as you can see. But we really did have a good month that even beat January. So just, and that was mostly due to, of course, retail has a big part of it. But restaurant and bars really came back strong last month, as well as our services. So golf courses, weekend rentals, and that short-term rentals and that sort of thing. So with last month's collections, we've reached our budget numbers for the year. So we've got 2 more months to go. It's a little gravy. So
other than signs, what do you contribute that to? The increase in business?
Most of it, I think, is the kind of return to somewhat more normal circumstances as far as the pandemic and people getting out, going back to eat, and that sort of thing. So we'll take it. We'll see how the last 2 months turn out. But I wanted to at least give you that kind of backdrop for what we're going to be doing next year. So as far as the final budget, we've got a total across all funds of $39 million. That number hasn't changed since we last met. Our general fund revenues stayed the same. As you can see, next year we've got 14.2 budgeted for TPT. We're right about 12.5 or so now for this year. So next year that should be right on target. We'll go through the expenditures. Obviously, general fund has to be a balance. So revenues have to equal expenditures. Our regularly programmed expenditures for general fund is at 22.6 minus most or of that 4.7 that you see on the general government line. You take 4.6 out of that. Those aren't regularly scheduled operational expenditures. It's just there basically to keep the budget balanced. Our FTE count for next year, 65. I'm going to go kind of fast through these ones since we've already talked about them quite a few times. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. Capital projects that are scheduled for next year. These are the stormwater drainage and facilities, and one park program or project there at the bottom. More park projects. And then one park project and mostly streets and traffic signal on the last one. Total 5.9 million. Now, You may or may not have heard that there's been a little change to what we're expecting for next year. It was a surprise when we got this email from the league, or actually from the Department of Treasury. But we originally were planning on getting just barely over $3 million each year for a total of $6 million. The town's actually scheduled now, according to the final formulas from Treasury, of $8.4 million. We'll take it. So I did get an email today that the state is going to be doing a informational webinar Zoom meeting on Friday. So we'll have some more information as far as the application process. I assume it's going to be a lot like the CARES Act that the process that we went through last year. We're all set to apply for it, but I will submit it on July 1st because we want to receive that money in the new fiscal year so that we don't run into any audit type issues. If anything changes, then I would let you know. That's also on the agenda later in the evening, is just the approval to apply and accept for that. So this is basically the presentation for that as well. As we've talked about before, these funds are recommended to be used for single one-time use type of projects. For audit purposes, we'd like to continue, and this is going to kind of depend on what we hear on Friday as well, but we'd like to pay our public safety invoices for the first part of the year until that money's been used, the 4.2 each year. There are some questions, like I said, as far as if that's allowable, an allowable use from Treasury, so we'll find out. But that's the plan. And then, of course, that would create savings in the general fund, and then that savings could be used for different purposes according to council's wishes. And that is it for budget presentations.
Thank you.
For the town, fiscal year 22.
Appreciate that. Did we have any speaker cards on this item? Do we have any comments or questions from council? So I'll close the hearing, and then we will recess into a special meeting to adopt the budget, because that's just what we do. And can we go straight to a motion? Or do we
Yeah,
have any
Mayor and
more?
Council, it's because of a weird technicality in state law that says you're supposed to adopt the budget in a special meeting. So that's why we're here.
I assume I didn't have to take roll call.
Oh, correct, Mayor.
Okay, can I get a motion then?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move, we approve Resolution 2021-14.
I second. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. So I will adjourn that special session, and we'll get started again, which is all along the same lines, right? So you're doing the next item also, David? Thank you. This is about our org charts, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. So along with each budget that we adopt each year, we also do an implementation memo that kind of outlines the administration of the budget throughout the year, the different processes and how budgets handled. It also outlines organizational charts, the authorized positions, pay plans throughout the year, and then some job descriptions if there's been any changes.
Yeah, I'd like to address the second part of this, the town organization charts, pay plans, schedule of authorized positions, and so on. And I want to start with a brief anecdote. Many years ago, I had the honor of sitting next to the former chairman and CEO of a major food company, who then left to become chairman and CEO of the largest medical technology company in the world. And I asked him a question. I said, his name was Win Wallen. Win, what's the secret? How could you be so successful at a food company and so successful at a technology company? He said, Alan, my number one job is choosing the right people. That's my number one job. I don't know all the staff. I know a lot of the staff. But I've witnessed the dedication of department heads and others, and they don't get enough credit. I am constantly impressed by the quality of our people and by the dedication they show, the work they put in, sometimes above and beyond. They're uniformly outstanding and bright. They're committed, and they're responsive to the council and to citizens. And you really can't ask for much more than that. We've got to be careful not to take for granted the quality of the staff we have. I'm sure a lot of them could go somewhere else and maybe do better in terms of pay scale and so on, but they stay with us. And I just can't speak highly enough for the quality of our staff. And I just hope that we can all, we can convey, and Grady will convey these feelings to our staff. We hear them all the time. Some of them are sitting right here. We hear presentations all the time. They spend enormous amounts of time getting ready for these presentations. When they're not making a presentation, behind the scenes, they're working diligently, sometimes on weekends, and I just don't think we should take it for granted.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. I'm sorry, do you have a presentation, or do we have more?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did have one thing, and by the way, thank you, Councilmember Magazine, and also the council, because I saw a lot of people shaking their heads, and that's very heartfelt, and I can tell that you meant that, and the staff here, as well as the staff members who aren't here tonight, we'll definitely get that passed along to them. But it's a testament. I think we've got a really great team here, and everything we do in the organization you can't do when you're in the public service business. It all takes staff, and so we're very appreciative of the comments that you made. I did want to make a point at each of your seats on the dais. There was a issue with a couple things. When I was out the last couple weeks, I did have a chance to review the agenda, but for some reason, the corrected org chart for Public Works, which is in front of you, as well as to reflect the supervisory relationship with the town engineer and the assistant town engineer, those job descriptions were somehow inadvertently not in the final that made it to the public packet, so I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Previously, the town engineer did not have supervisory oversight of the assistant town engineer, but with the town engineer we have, that is something that's pretty normal, pretty common to have that town engineer overseas. So that was a change that was made and inadvertently didn't make it in the packet. So I just want to make that clear to you tonight. Thank you.
And thank you, Grady. Do we have any speaker cards? Going along with what Alan said, that about weekends and stuff, everybody sitting here knows that I'm kind of a pain, so I really appreciate it, because I'm, for example, I actually read this thing and saw that about the engineer, so, I mean, it's, and I know it can get a little, I can imagine when you see an inbox and it's me, so I just want to say I appreciate it, because, and you're absolutely right, I always get clear, great answers that help me respond to constituents, and I really appreciate it. With that, can we get a motion, please?
I lost track.
See it? It's on 62.
Move to adopt Resolution 2021-15.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. One more budget, and then we'll jump down to G. David?
All right, so if I remember correctly, this one is for our auditing contract. As everyone's aware, we're required by Arizona state statute to have our financial reports audited by an outside independent firm. For the last 5 years, that firm has been Heinfeld Meach. In interest of making sure that the town's receiving the best services for the best price, we went out and submitted an RFP, request for proposals this year, to solicit those proposals from different firms. We did that in March. We received 5 responses. Staff graded those responses and invited 2 firms to come back for kind of an oral interview, presentations. And after that, it actually, 5 years ago, it came down to the same 2 firms that it came down to this year. At the end of the day, we decided that Heinfeld Meach deserved another 5-year contract. That will help staff, as well as, they've become familiar with the town, kind of our processes. We don't have to start from ground zero. We can kind of work on those efficiencies that we've built in over the last 5 years. And staff recommends approval.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I just want to just make something very clear. So the $198,695 is actually over the course of 5 years. And it's slightly inflated only because we don't know from year to year if we're going to need to have a single audit.
Correct.
Those typically are $3,000 per year. So in reality, there's 1 year in the 5 years that the court is required to have an audit. That's built into this cost. So it's really about $15,000, likely over, but we don't know with the CARES Act or with the ARPA if we may end up having single audits. So this is just to be on the safe side. It does not mean that we're going to be paying the firm $198,695. It just means it will be up to $198. And if you look at the attachments, there's a slight escalation in each year. So it's all contained within this total that's before you tonight.
Thank you, Grady. Any questions, any comment cards? No? Thank you. Can I get a motion, please?
Move approval of professional services agreement 2021-051 with Heinfeld and Meach for auditing services for the fiscal years 21 to 25, not to exceed the amount of $198,695.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So, as promised, we are going to 8G, which is the Splash Park and Fountain Park playground equipment. Grady?
We'll just turn it right over to Ms.
Rachel,
Goodwin, the
thank
Community
you.
Services Director, will give you a brief presentation on these items.
Thanks.
Thank you, Grady. Mayor and Council, I am here tonight. I want to say thank you for adopting the budget. As part of that adoption, you guys did authorize the CIP, and we are getting ready to talk about our very first project. That is, actually, it's 2 in 1. It is the Fountain Park Playground and Splash Pad. I'm going to try to get our presentation going. There we go. So this is a little bit longer, but I am going to try to move through it pretty fast. Everyone on the dais is familiar with the project. I've talked with everyone about it. I don't think any of it will come as a surprise, but we do have some additional details to share. So getting going, we are talking about a playground redevelopment for Fountain Park. It is our flagship park. The play structures were installed in 2015. That makes them about 16 years old. They're starting to fail. We're finding safety issues. We've had to remove a number of pieces. It's not fiscally prudent to kind of onesie-twosies replace them, given that the full replacement is called for in 2025. It seems that it won't last that long based on the current deterioration. So we are recommending a replacement and an expansion of the playground. As our flagship park, that playground definitely gets the most use of all of ours. So we would like to look at expanding that. So just to give everyone, if you haven't been down there recently, this is kind of what our current playground looks like. If you recall, a few months ago, you approved us to replace the 2 to 5-year-old portion. This is the big kids, if you will. This is the 5 to 12. This picture illustrates this green sort of horseshoe-looking thing there. Generally has a tire swing hanging from it, but that is one of the elements that's been removed because of damage. So you can kind of see. We'd like to attribute the bump in revenue in the month of April to the installation of the 2 to 5-year-old playground. And maybe Music Fest, but this kind of gives you an idea. It's kind of a standard, what we'll call old school playground. The new playground that we've designed when working with one of our vendors includes the name of the piece is called the Giant XL. It's the only slide tower of its kind in the United States. It's a 30-foot climbing structure and has enclosed slides. We also have the addition of some new abstract climbing blocks spanning over 13 feet. We would use the existing shade structures. Those will remain in place. And the footprint that we've been talking about, the expanded footprint, will remove a passive vegetation area, which has some yucca and some other things that we'll work to transplant if possible, but it won't impact the walking paths and things like that, or the accessibility. So with that in mind, this gives you a rendering of what the new play space would look like.
Yeah, Rachel, we have any potential liability issues?
In terms of a new play structure?
30 feet high and so on?
Nope. This is, I think if you've been down to Mesa Riverview, the park that's down there, they have a large climbing structure. It's probably taller than that. It's not the same format as this.
Anybody
but
been killed yet?
No. I'd like to think I wouldn't bring you something with that type of liability. But this gives you a visual of what this play space will look like. So, am I going the wrong way? There it goes. So again, you can't really see the shade structures, but it will include shade that's down there. So the other half of the project that we've been talking about is the splash pad. The splash pad was installed in 2007, and it was one of the first in Arizona, which is really unique if you think about it, but it was actually installed, to my understanding, it was installed like a pool. Everything is subgrade. The filtration and all of that is built like a pool. Currently the system is leaking above grade, below grade. It's outlasted its life expectancy. We have a number of pieces that we can't replace, and it's showing its age. And then due to the popular demand of the splash pad, we've been looking at if it makes appropriate sense to increase this footprint as well. It is the only splash pad in town. It is the only water-based amenity that we have. We have no pool. We have no other splash pad. So we want to make sure that what we do with this really withstands the test of time, and we do believe we have the means to increase the footprint roughly 20%.
Mayor, the $860,000 blows my mind every time I see it. We've probably asked you this in the past. Do we have any idea what the life expectancy is? Are there any things that we can do to make the life expectancy expand?
That's a great question. Well, ideally, using the upgraded system, as we'll look at here in a second, will allow us to do better preventative maintenance on it. So if we do have a piece that is leaking or failing, we can remove that without having to bust out concrete to get to it. The new technology allows us to do that. Will hopefully, again, allow us to keep better tabs on it. We can't see anything below grade here in order to do that currently. A lot of that cost is on the demolition side of this, because it is going to require a full removal, and we don't know what's down there. But that's a great question. So with that in mind, these are some, I know. We're going to hope that it lasts a really long time. Splash pads, our splash pad is generally a 10 to 12 years, so we're already past that window, and it's shown signs for a number of years now. You can kind of see some of this. This is some of the surface wear that you see. A lot of folks go down and say, but it looks really pretty. It's really bright. It still looks good. That's a coat of paint. That's not what's going on under the hood, so to speak. Kevin and his crew do a lot to try to make sure that it presents really well. If you've been down there recently, a number of valves stick open. So even when some of the amenities turn off, some of them just keep going. It's kind of pretty to watch, but it's really not efficient by any means. So this kind of gives you an idea of what our current splash pad, if you haven't been down there recently, looks like. So the renovations that we've been working with, again, this is designed to kind of pull in some of the other amenities in the park and coincide with our musical instrument park, as well as the playground color palette, so it all kind of goes. It all looks like it's intentional. We worked to put in, it's called the FS Duplex Soaker. We've dubbed it the Mega Dumper. It's a double bucket dump that towers over 20 feet tall, and it would be the first in the United States. Everybody has the dump buckets, but this one's a big one. It also includes, with the footprint increase, we would like to put in a few more features that are appropriate for our younger users, for our 2 to 5 group, so that our big kids sort of have a dedicated space, as well as our youngers. So a water table. We would, as I mentioned, put in above-grade modular components for easy repair and maintenance. And then a new flooring system would go in. We are still working right now on a number of materials. There's a number of new products that have come out that are safety rated, that have a number of slip and fall protections. We're working to make sure that whatever we choose can withstand our desert sun and has the longevity. Do you have a question?
Actually, I have 2 questions. So who polices where these kids go, the small kids versus the big kids? Is that self-policed?
It is. It is. It's designed, ideally, the big kids won't be as entertained by what's going on in the smaller
But the
area.
little kids might be more entertained by where the big
Correct.
kids are. Okay.
Yes.
And are you expecting any production delays getting material to get this completed?
That's a great question, and that is part of the reason we are getting in front of you this evening. You'll see in a few moments that we don't intend to actually take this project on until probably October. The splash pad season will close at the end of September, so we want to finish our season this year and then begin work. But we would like to get the order processed as soon as possible because of those expected delays. We don't know what that timeline is just yet, but we've definitely want to get moving. And that applies to both this and the playground. So with that, this is kind of one of the exciting pieces that our vendor worked with us so that we could get a better idea of what the splash pad will look like. So instead of photos, I have this, if it works. So you can kind of see the musical instrument players that welcome you into the park. It was designed like that specifically. And there's the mega super soakers. So this would be the table, the water table made for our little guys. Again, it's just not as interesting to our bigger ones. And it kind of gives you an idea. That was pretty cool. So I'm going to move through. The next couple of slides are just still renderings of what you just saw. So we'll keep moving. And it kind of brings us to the end of the conversation, which is the timeline and budget, which we just touched on. The Fountain Park Playground budget is budgeted at $360. It is in the capital improvement that you just approved. The renovations and installations would begin late summer, as soon as we can get it. So the idea would be to order, and then as soon as we can receive it, pending any manufacturing or delivery timelines, to get rolling on that project. The splash pad does have a not to exceed of $860. A lot of those costs are somewhat variable in terms of, like I said, the actual demolition and things like that. We don't know what we'll find, so we wanted to make sure that we could bring the whole project to fruition, but it is a do not exceed, so we do have some variability in there. It would be awesome to come in under budget and over deliver. Again, the renovations would begin in October, ideally, following the close of the summer splash pad season. And both projects combined do have a value of not to exceed 1.2. This is all in line with the budget that we've just discussed for the CIP. And we're excited to bring some new things to Fountain Park.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
That video you have, is that something you can share on the town website or whatever to let people know?
Absolutely. Pending approval tonight, we'd be happy to get that added. Mhm.
Rachel, is this design build, or so is the video conceptually kind of close to what it will be? So as far as the pieces and design and layout, okay.
Which is and I'm glad you mentioned that, thank you, because there were, I had a comment from the public asking to look to know a little more about this project, and we didn't have the video ready in time, but they were working to have it so that we could share it tonight to make sure, because in my opinion, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That tells the story much better than I can.
So it
yes,
will be
it is.
representative of what it will look like now. As you mentioned earlier, they may have some structural issues or things that we're not quite sure, but you're saying conceptually everything that we saw in the video will be pretty much what it will look like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Kevin went so far as to work with the color palettes and things like that and make sure what you see should be pretty darn close.
We won't have as many trees, though.
That's probably true.
Thank you. Councilman?
Motion? I would move approval of contract 2021-48 in the amount not to exceed $1.2 million.
Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
I think you got the next one too, which is going to be 8J on the Parks Master Plan, or the Trails Master Plan.
Yes, and that's pending if I can figure out how to work. There we go.
Making you jump around.
So, master plan. So on the same page, I'm going to move through this somewhat quickly because we have covered a lot of this information. Tonight we're bringing back the master plan. You saw me about a month ago in April, where actually it was our consultant that was here that had a pretty in-depth presentation. Some feedback was received from the council where we talked about the plan, about some big ideas, where the plan could go, what it should include, what it shouldn't include. We had a lot of different discussions. So we were able to take that and incorporate a number of those things, and we are back tonight for your final review and adoption. So just to kind of review, what is a master plan? It's our blueprint. It helps us make decisions. It helps you guys make decisions. It helps the public understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. All of these things kind of lead to fiscally responsible, publicly supported, politically prudent, and environmentally sound decisions. Apparently not. How was it developed? How did we get here? The master plan kicked off when you guys approved it in early 2020. After we did a bid process, we contracted with Greenplay. And we got rolling. We were not expecting a pandemic. It slowed us down a bit. We did a number of things over the summer, including our park evaluations, stakeholder input sessions that were done virtually, multiple public input sessions, and then we did our survey, which collected about 758 total. So once we had that input, late 2020 into early 2021, we had another public input to kind of share those results, gather feedback from regarding the priorities, and then create a recommendations list that was presented online. That same recommendation list was refined and brought back to council in April. It was also vetted through the Community Service Advisory Commission and the McDowell Mountain Preservation Commission, both of which have unanimously supported the master plan. So that brings us to tonight, or actually it brought us to in April. Council's input resulted in several updates, including changes to the staffing recommendations. There was some specific staff suggestions or specific staff additions. We wanted to allow for some greater flexibility so that if we are bringing staff on, it may not be written in stone who and what area those support. We also made changes to the future amenity recommendations, including the aquatic or environmental center, allowing us some more flexibility in terms of assessing the needs, the timing, the demand, the financial support. As opposed to saying we will do this or should do this, it's a matter of we're going to look at it and see if that's the right thing to do. Obviously, all of these are sort of implied that before making a step in that direction, we would come and discuss it with council to find out if there's support at that level. We also added some language to increase the focus on teen and family activities within the community center, including no programs and potential extended hours, and then increased consideration to future amenities and how neighboring resources may offset or support the demand. Specifically, we were talking about McDowell Mountain Regional Park and what they offer and how we may or may not want to consider that. One thing I didn't put on here, but that was added to the plan, was our botanical garden. That did not get listed as one of our amenities, and that was an oversight. It is a big feature and a great resource for our community, so we wanted to make sure we recognize that. So the next steps, just a reminder that this is a living framework. It's not intended to be rigid. It's not intended to be a must-do. It's supposed to be modified and adaptable. What we look like today may not be what we look like 5 years from now. What we need today may change versus what we may need in 5 years or 10 years. So it's not locked in, is what I really want to come away with. The intention is to make updates annually to reflect any developments, progress, changes, things like that. And then we would continue to update our strategic plan as our approach to getting some of these things done. The what are we going to do to hit our goals? So we would identify those and develop that approach. With that being said, is there any questions or anything I can share regarding the master plan?
Are there any questions or speaker cards? No? Did you have a question? No? Did you have a question?
Comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel. And no, I was going to say I kind of read through it quickly again after the packet was sent out, and I can't say I agree with all the objectives at the end, but I do appreciate the slide before. I think a little more flexibility, perhaps written in there in terms of this is a blueprint. This doesn't mean we're going to do all this stuff or that any one of us agree with all the things in there. It's just, I know there was a fair amount of input and all that kind of stuff. So as long as we all recognize that's what it is. And like I said, some of the objectives I think are still kind of out there, but that's fine. We'll just proceed, and whether it's this council or future ones, we'll be wrestling with some of this stuff for years to come. So I think it's overall a good plan, and it's a good framework for your department and this town.
Thank you, Mike. One thing I appreciated is the connection to the strategic plan, so we often talk to the members of that commission and also Vision Fountain Hills, and we can kind of lose sight, and this always brings it back, and several of these are directly related to that, and there are others that aren't, but I think that having those kind of overriding, it's flexible, but it is a blueprint. It kind of gives you the idea of what we were talking about. I noticed just looking at the minutes of our discussion that a lot of that was incorporated. One of the things I hope we can do before, because this stuff is kind of long range, is to go back after the success that you were having with those Thursday live shows. And I know that we talked about the first Friday kind of concept, and even that almost being not an enterprise, but something that we do that might help offset some of these other things we want to do. So that would be something that maybe sooner, than later, rather than waiting to have to implement everything. I would love to see us kind of move forward with that. So if there isn't anything, yes, ma'am.
One of the things that I wanted to mention to make sure that we talked about is, yes, this is a guide and it's not binding, but when we had our call with the gentleman, and I forgot his name, but he was here a couple of months ago, what he said to us was, this is big picture. This is pie in the sky. I want to know, in your ultimate Fountain Hills, what would your dream be? And that's how some of these suggestions were made. So yeah, it's a little pie in the sky, but it would be a great guideline as community services is coming up with a pathway. They can say, hey, we can't afford to do the aquatic center, but this might be a great step in that kind of direction. So I think that was the entire purpose of this, was to help give them something to get their creative juices rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's exactly right. When we did the original strategic plan, I think when we started thinking about how much things were going to cost, you end up taking stuff off the table instead of saying, but we really want this. So you're absolutely right, Sharon. I agree with that. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I will.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-19 for the Community Services Park, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Rachel.
Thank you.
We're going to go back to 8D, which is about the abatement of dangerous buildings and construction sites. Grady?
Yes, Mayor and Council, you recall that this was one of the items that came out of the council retreat as a discussion item, that there have been situations in town where we've had unfinished construction or construction that's been taking an inordinate amount of time. Our Development Services Director is going to give a brief presentation on this, and he'll be seeking your direction on some of the ideas before you tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wesley.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mayor, Council, as Mr. Miller has explained, we were given direction by Council to look and see what options we might have to deal with the topic of unfinished construction. Staff's aware of 5 or 6 properties around town where some construction got started and then just stopped, and the properties have been left in various states of I'd say disrepair, or at least lack of finish, and it leaves them unsightly and a bit of a blight or challenge for the surrounding neighborhood. So as we took the opportunity to look at that, one of the things we first looked at, we realized we had as a resource, is the town council has already adopted as part of the total package of codes in the town, the 1997 Uniform Code for the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings. And that deals specifically with dangerous buildings, which when we have unfinished construction, they can be dangerous, but a lot of times they aren't really. And so while this provided some good bones that we thought we could work with, it didn't exactly cover the topic. This does, because it's a nationally adopted code, set out all the standards that can be used for how we would address such issues in terms of all the legal requirements for notice and taking through a process and appeals and so forth. And so we thought it was good bones. So as we considered that, we recognized that if we just went into the definitions of what is considered a dangerous building, if we added one more definition, and that's what's proposed as a text amendment, that defines a dangerous building in terms of a building that just doesn't get completed and has been left without any additional activity for a period of time. We've put 2 years in the draft ordinance. We could talk about changing that to some other time frame. But if it has sat for that long, then we could consider it a dangerous building and start the process. And the process, generally speaking, that's in the code is we'd first reach out to the property owner, the developer of a project, and remind them that they've got this project, that they're running into this code requirement. They need to get busy and finish it up, or we'll take action. Give them a period of time to then take that action. If they don't, then we'll start the formal process of declaring it the unfinished dangerous building, and give them specific time frame to take action. If they don't, then we could abate the problem through probably going in and clearing the property, then placing a lien on the property. Would be the typical way it would happen. There's an opportunity in there for them to appeal the decision of the building official to the Building Board of Appeals, so they have that right, and some other steps along there. But that's kind of an overview of how it would happen if we take this route. As we've had some discussion since this report went out, kind of got some ideas, some other things we might want to look at with regard to how we handle this, shortening the time frame, how we keep somebody from just kind of playing the game and leading something on by acting like they're doing something but not really. So we, based on the council discussion tonight, we may want to take this and give it a little bit further look. But this is what we have for your consideration tonight. Take any questions, comments?
Yeah, I think you started to answer the question I was going to ask, which is the word dangerous got my attention. What's the longest period of time? You may not be able to answer this exactly, but from the time you determine that it's dangerous, and let's say for the sake of discussion, you can't even contact the owner. Any idea how long it might take before we can actually do something?
Mayor, Councilmember, it will likely take a period of months to work through a system. If we do have something that is truly dangerous, if it's life-threatening, the building official has a little bit more authority to step in and at least protect life and property and take some more immediate actions. But for these types of situations, it will take some months because we have notice requirements, opportunities for appeal, and so forth before we could actually do something. And it could take longer if somebody's really trying to work the system.
Would we have the ability, and maybe Aaron can answer this, if you've got a dangerous situation and you say it's going to take months, you know how when there's a crime, you have yellow tape.
Right.
Is there a way to tape off a building like that, try to keep people from going near it, going in it, whatever?
Yes, again, Mayor, council member, if something is truly dangerous, if it's posing a real danger, imminent danger, the building official has authority to address those types of things.
I have a couple of questions, please. I took the liberty of reading a little bit about it, because of course I'm interested in that. And to answer your question, it looks like under 7012 that you have 30 days to act to demolish, and if not, the town can demolish. But that is something that, we'd have to clarify. But that's one of the things. Another thing that I have a question about is, when you deem the building to be a dangerous, when you deem it to be the dangerous, how long does it take you to do that with a building? And because that's going to add to the 2-year time frame, correct? So how do you determine, when do you determine, you give notice, and then when you give the notice, that's going to start the time building, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how long does that usually take?
Mayor, council member, since we haven't done this before,
Oh, okay.
we don't know exactly, how it will play out specifically.
Mhm.
But knowing that we have, again, approximately half dozen of these out here currently, once the council takes action, we will at that point start reaching out to those property owners and let them know that this has been adopted and that we are going to give them a period of time to just kind of voluntarily start doing something. And if not, we'll start to get to that formal process of setting the time frames.
Okay, because like the pictures that you gave us, those are, they look horrible, and they could be considered a nuisance. So those would probably be the ones you start with?
Yes.
Okay. And then as for the 2-year time frame, I think that's really a long time personally. I think that really leaves the blight, so to speak, in the town for an extraordinary amount of time on top of the time it's already been sitting there before the town acts, and then goes through 30, 60 days, whatever. There's an appeal process and the whole 9 yards. In one of the definitions, it says whenever any portion of a building or structure remains on a site after the demolition or destruction of the building or structure, or whenever the building structure is abandoned, they give a period in excess of six months or so as to constitute such building a portion thereof an attractive nuisance or hazard. So wouldn't the time frame be, if 6 months, be more in concert with kind of the intent under the 1997 Uniform Code?
Mayor, council member, yes, it could be. We're dealing with a little bit different situation in terms of the demolition of a building versus something that somebody has started constructing for whatever financial reason, have had a hard time finishing it. And so, it's maybe a little bit less likely. The ones we see around town, we don't see as really being dangerous per se. They're unsightly, they're a nuisance, they're a problem to the neighborhood.
Well, it's just abandoned.
Right.
Yeah, it's not
Whereas
being
if you've
built.
been tearing something down, it's a little bit more likely to truly be dangerous type situation. But still, I think that's a good point. It could be a guide to ratchet this back to 6 months or a year instead of 2 years. Again, we pick something to kind of start discussion from what it's seen in another community, but certainly we could reduce it.
Yeah, because it can take a period of time to do the notice and go back and forth, and then if they appeal, you could be looking at 4 or 5 years if you have a 2-year period tacked onto it. That's my personal opinion. I think it's probably too long.
Mayor, if I may, so again, also, someone can start construction, and they can be doing enough little work along. They could have been working on it for a year or two before they even stop. They would start the clock that okay, you haven't done anything now for 6 months, a year, whatever, and it could be 3 or 4 years before we even get to that point. So you're right, it could take a while.
And then another thing is payment for this. The town's going to incur costs and things like that in evoking this doctrine, so to speak. So they're going to have to either lien the property or bill the person for it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's going to
we
add
would
on to the
start
time
with
to
the-
recoup that money.
Correct. We would start with a bill and then probably have to lien it in most cases, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree as well. I think 2 years is too long. I think it should be at least, a year at the most, but it's just my opinion on that. 2 years does seem to be excessive. And then typically, I know you said someone can go out there and kind of milk it out, but typically a single-family residential unit building permit is good for a year, right?
Mayor, council member, any building permit is valid for a period of 6 months if no action is taken for a 6-month period, or 180 days is what it really says in the code, then the permit expires. But as long as they do something, get some kind of inspection so we see that work is progressing, then it continues for as long as it takes to complete the building.
Okay, so there's no end point then if every 5th month they do
If
something?
they're doing something that lets us know that they have continued the work.
Is that standard in the building industry,
Yes.
or is that something?
No, that is standard building code language that's common across the country.
Seems like that should be addressed, but that's a whole separate issue, I guess. And I talked to John earlier today, and my question was if something like this would cover the former Taco Bell building that's been burned and destroyed and vacated for 2+ years. And I know it's fenced, and the basic answer was no, this doesn't cover that situation. And so I don't know if there's any additional language we could consider that would cover something like that, or if that's something that you still need to study and come back with, or is that something we can't really address? Seems to me, there is, someone owns that property, and even if there's lawsuits flying back and forth, it still seems to me that it's dangerous even though it's fenced, but that's just my opinion. But
So, Mayor, council member, that wasn't the charge we were given as we looked at that, so that's why it doesn't specifically cover it. We could go back and look at the definitions we have in the dangerous building code to see if there are other adjustments that could be made to better handle that type of situation. I would assume it would also be within this code that it would be handled, but I'd have to get with the town
John,
building
if I
official to
may,
review.
on that particular, it's a good point of, contention on that. But my understanding is that even though there was a fire in there, it's structurally sound on the interior. It has not been condemned by the town. So I think that would be the distinguishing part. Let's say you have a home fire, and let's say the people didn't have like homeowners insurance. It could be the fire marshal could condemn that property if it structurally would not be sound and could collapse or what have you. In this case, with the Taco Bell, it's very clear that the issues of the safety, it's really people breaking in and maybe injuring themselves, but structurally it's sound. And that's the difference, I think, here.
Too bad. But, I know there have been, some house fires out here over the decades that they have sat for quite a while. So I don't know if there's any way we can address that, but, getting around the structure thing. But anyway, something to throw out there.
I don't understand why what we're doing now, wouldn't, because we're talking about being a nuisance now, and can you consider that a nuisance? Isn't that why we're changing it? Because we haven't been able to say that things are dangerous, but so wouldn't it fall under that?
Mayor, again, it'd probably be good for me to talk to the building official to better understand, some of the nuances of the codes to better address that. But what we were specifically looking at was the new construction, as we wrote this definition, looked how it fit in the code, which is a slightly different situation than a burned-out existing building, which already has codes that take care of when it has to be torn down or what you can do to secure the site to keep it safe. And so, again, we'd have to go back and look at that in this context, see if there is any additional language that could be used to address those in a better fashion.
Yeah, kind of blurry lines, because if someone was in that position and then they did get a permit to start fixing it, but then they couldn't, then it would end up falling under what we're doing now, so, because then they'd be trying to do some construction. So we were hearing about changing maybe the length of time, and then maybe going ahead with it and seeing how it plays out for a little while, rather than not doing anything tonight. What would you think about that? About making it, a year or so. Peggy? You guys, what do you think?
Makes sense.
All right, so if somebody would like, so how would you like us to do that? Because the motion is to adopt the ordinance, but we would want to change at least the 2-year thing out of there, right? Yeah. So is that just goes into the motion, Aaron? Adopt that with that change?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think that it would say, move to adopt Ordinance 21-08, something to the effect of, with the exception of the 2-year period being reduced to a 1-year period. Does that work?
Works for me.
Somebody want to make a motion like that?
I'll go ahead and move that exact motion right there.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Well stated. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Mayor, if I may, we did have a good discussion on this topic, and I think that we heard very loud and clear that you'd like to maybe have us come back and bring something on some sort of nuisance properties. And so I'll work with the Development Services Director and his staff to bring back that, because I think we've heard some really good, valid concerns. So, but I think that they are really two different issues. So we'll bring back something separately on that at a later date, okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
I know. Our next item is about a purchase of a light-duty truck. Justin?
Madam Mayor, thank you. We come tonight and ask for permission to replace the fire marshal's vehicle. It has reached the 10-year threshold, and everything that we are asking for tonight is in alignment with our procurement and vehicle replacement policy. The only difference between this vehicle and the remaining vehicles we ask permission to purchase is the color and the trim package. Outside of that, they are identical to the remaining vehicles that we'll be asking for as we move forward in the future for future years. This is actually the fire marshal's truck. The one that they currently have has reached the 10-year threshold. It is in relatively good condition. However, it is subject to numerous failures as we move forward here, and we simply cannot ask the fire marshal or put him in a position to have a vehicle that could possibly be inoperable or become operable when someone dials 911. With that, if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Councilman?
You kind of answered my question, because when I looked at this proposal, 20% of the cost of this unit was upgrades. And then you just answered it because it's for the fire marshal. So that makes more sense. It's not a truck that's going to be just rolling around town. They're going to be doing some big calls and things like that with it. So,
Madam Mayor, council member, if I may, it's not just a normal truck, and in fact, our firefighters take incredible care of the vehicles that we purchase for them to use. They are always clean. They're well maintained, and for those of you that have not had an opportunity, shiny. Take a look at them. Look at the chrome on them.
I
They
can
take care of
attest to
them.
that, because he did make a call next door to my house. So
What are you going to do with the old car?
Excuse me?
What are you going to do with the one you're putting out to pasture? Sell it or keep it, or?
Madam Mayor, yes, for the vehicle that this is replacing, that vehicle is actually going to go into a standby mode, and the vehicle that was outdated before that will be sent to auction. What it does is it gives us a spare vehicle for the fire department for the types of calls, like a snake call or something minor that does not require an emergency, and also a backup should we need it. You're welcome.
Well, my question is, I mean, is the fire marshal really going to get this truck, or is the chief going to make him swap once the, you know, because his is probably almost a year old already. It's probably, anyway. Just,
Anybody, you want to make the motion, please?
Move to approve amendment number 1 to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement 2021-002 with Sanderson Ford for the purchase of 1 new light-duty truck in the amount of $44,511.70.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Justin. Our next item is
welcome.
about Verizon Wireless Facility Lease.
Madam Mayor, thank you. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that the town actually leases several pieces of property within the town to wireless facilities or wireless service providers. In this particular case, this is a renewal of an existing agreement for the northwest corner of Palisades and Shea. On that traffic signal pole, there is a wireless antenna array that they maintain. Just west of that is their backup generator and their site operations center, where all of the necessary hardware is contained within the block walls. This is an agreement that we went back and forth with and we negotiated with, I always refer to them as Verizon. Apparently they have changed their name, but for the sake of this conversation, Verizon Wireless has offered the agreements that are written into that, and I will repeat them. Currently, the rent is $1,512 a month. The new agreement will take it to $1,665 a month for the first 5 years of the agreement. For the second renewal, it will move from $1,665 a month to $1,830 a month. And finally, for the third, it will move from $1,830 a month in rent to $2,015 a month in rent. It should be noted that during this time frame, Verizon will continue to make upgrades to their array in that intersection to ensure that they are competitive in regards to the most recent technology. If the change is substantial, staff will be back here to make council aware of it and ask for some guidance in regards to that.
Justin, does any other company piggyback on this with Verizon?
Madam Mayor, council member, at this time, they do not have a cohabitation agreement with another provider.
I believe that's called a co-location, not cohabitation.
You just made this item a lot more interesting.
Co-location.
So, anybody want to make the motion?
I was going to say something, but I won't.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. Are there any further questions? Anybody want to make the motion, please?
I'll move to approve contract 2021-050.
Thank you. Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we go to H now, which is the Sports and Tourism Authority grants. Is that?
Thank you,
Rachel?
Mayor. Yes, we'll have the Community Services Director, Ms. Goodwin, come up, and the next two items will be tied to her department for these grant submittals. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Goodwin, who will explain these two grant proposals.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do have presentations, but I think we can kind of just dive in, and then if we need any clarification. The first is the Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority. It's the ASTA grant. We've applied for it a number of times. It is the grant that redid our tennis courts a number of years ago. It is the same grant that helped us build a basketball court over in Four Peaks. It is an every 2-year grant, so the odd year is the application year. That would be 21. The even year is the year that the project, if approved, is done. So it's time to apply again. We have been the recipient a number of times, and this year we'd like to go back to ask for a new project. We don't know if we'll get it. We've been fortunate, but the way this grant works is it is funded through the car rental tax, and as we all know, car rentals were not high this past year, so I don't know how much funding they will have to give away. In some years we've asked, and they've said we have way more asks than we have money. Last year it happened that they funded every single project that was submitted, and they had enough to give away and then some. So it's worked in our favor. And again, my theory is you can't get it unless you ask. So I'm here tonight to propose the project of adding lights to our skate park. The ASTA grant is specific to youth amenities and youth and outdoor activities. So we have asked for this grant once before. We did not receive it. However, we do believe that with the improved walkability and the number of improvements that are happening at that park, it does make this project more attractive. The lights for the skate park were originally part of the Desert Vista Park design. However, they were cut as a budgetary item when they did not have the funding to complete the full project. It is one of the only amenities in town that is not lit, actually. Our basketball courts are lit, our tennis courts are lit, our ball fields are lit. This is one of the few that is not, and it does render it very unusable during the peak usable seasons. So again, in wintertime, the sun goes down early. You can't use it much after dark. And then in the summertime, no one really wants to be skating in the heat. They'd much rather have access during the evening hours. This is programmed into our CIP for our half of the project. The project's expected to be roughly $150,000. That is higher than it originally was estimated when we first asked for the grant. That is a result of everything going up, but we do have a price lock right now for that with our Musco lighting provider. We would be putting in half at 75, and the grant ask would be for 75 as well. So we're here for asking your permission to apply and proceed if we get the grant.
Thank you. Councilman.
Just a quick question. Grant writing is a specific skill, and we do a lot of them. Who drafts them? You're kidding.
Generally speaking, I do. I do get a lot of help from staff. I'm not, especially with getting quotes and understanding how long will it take and what's it really look like. You know, we say, oh, let's just add some lights. Well, what's that really mean? And things like that. So it is an effort, but writing the grants and writing some of the applications that we do, usually I'll take the lead on it.
Do they ever get any legal review?
If needed, absolutely. Aaron is on speed dial for sure.
Just curious, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Move to authorize a grant application for the Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority grant for skate park lighting at the Desert Vista Skate Park and authorize the grant acceptance and all steps necessary to implement if awarded the grant.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thanks. I think you're up next.
In the same vein here, we have one more grant that we're looking at. This is actually a new grant. We've just been doing research on it and found that we are eligible. We sort of had ruled it out in the past. Our commission, our Community Service Advisory Commission, and Councilmember Grisbowski can probably attest to this, that they have a group that scours for grants and tries to keep us aware of what's out there. This is one that's been on our radar. We did have several meetings with them. And we would like to consider a new project. This is not one that we have kind of brought to the council awareness, but this kind of landed in our laps and we felt like maybe it was something worth researching. The idea would be a project at Four Peaks Park that we currently don't have funding for, which is a new bathroom located adjacent to the new playground space. So right now we do have a restroom, but it is across the wash on the north side of the park. Again, it's kind of hard to get there from the playground if you don't know where it is. We are going to be looking at adding some signage and some direction, but it is one of those things that if you are using, say, the pickleball courts or one of the amenities on the south end of the park, it's kind of a haul to get up to the restrooms. So this would be a supplementary. There is evidence that there was a restroom in this general vicinity when the school was operating. So we do believe that there is the infrastructure there to support this. So the idea would be, we're asking for your permission tonight to further research the grant and, if appropriate, apply for the funding to do this. This one is a much longer term grant. It would actually not come due until, I believe we have to submit this fall, and we wouldn't know until the spring, with construction potentially as late as next summer. It is a long lead time. We do have a number of things, because it's new for us, that we want to make sure that the project is feasible. But we wanted to bring it forward for your consideration in terms of moving forward if feasible and prudent.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions? Okay, thank you. The motion's on 323.
Move to authorize the grant application to Arizona State Parks and Trails and authorize the grant acceptance and all steps necessary to implement, if awarded, the grant for addition of a restroom at Four Peaks Park.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Great, thank you.
Thanks so much. So our next item now is David Pock is up again about the American Rescue Plan, which I think we heard about earlier. Thank you.
Is correct. All we talked about earlier during the final budget meeting. I will say that if I had to do grant writing for this, we'd be in big trouble. I would be looking to Rachel. So other than that, no, like I said, that there is going to be an informational meeting on Friday. We'll know some more then. I anticipate it being the same type of application process as the CARES Act, and that will be submitted July 1st so that we would receive that money after the beginning of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Grady?
Just wanted to remind the council, we didn't talk about this earlier, but we will be coming back to the council in September with either a work session or an agenda item where we'll be discussing potential uses of the savings that we have once we verify, obviously, that we can spend this initially on public safety for the next couple of years. But the point is, this is a real critical piece that we need your approval tonight so that we can proceed in trying to get the $8.4 million over the next 2 years.
Thank you. Any questions about this? No?
Motion?
Yep.
Mayor, move to authorize the town manager or designee to apply for, accept, and/or receive American Rescue Plan grant funds and to make the necessary FY22 budget transfers.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks a lot. Our last item, our last regular agenda item is the legislative piece. Several of you said you were on those calls, so you kind of have the lowdown right now. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. So as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, basically the House and the Senate have taken a break just prior to the holiday weekend. It sounds to me like it's very possible that the flat tax may or may not be passed. I believe I sent the council an email last week that pretty much showed kind of the drama that was going on leading up to, midnight hours and, meetings with the governor's office. And I think it's obvious that the governor's office realizes that this is going to cause harm to cities and towns. And to Councilmember Friedell's point about Nick Ponder, and the guy is really a genius, and he's done a really good job looking after our interest. And so I think what I can say is that based on what I've heard from both Nick Ponder and the LIG staff, all the vigilance of all the cities and towns around the state have really paid off. And we may have to ask you to do more, but I really appreciate all of you in your own way, the things that you've done, either having conversations with legislators or emailing or actually going online to the Arizona Legislative Information Systems to register your opposition. So those have all been very effective. And we just got to keep our fingers crossed, but then be ready to move very quickly because the budget really started moving very quickly last week. So thanks again to your help, and we'll continue to monitor this very closely.
Thank you, Grady. Also, other entities had concerns, AARP and GPEC and others that are
into consideration tonight, all the people, all the business owners that took the time to talk to us about how that ordinance that passed negatively affected or is going to negatively affect their business. I hope that we take that into consideration. I implore you guys to please think about this. This is not a threat or anything. This 100%, if this vote stands, it will go to a referendum. It will wind up costing this town another $35,000, $37,000 for an election. This will be Daybreak Part 2 all over again. I just implore you guys to please think about this. Let's work on this. I'm willing to be flexible. Please, let's put our heads together. And after we got input from the community, the business community, let's not forget that these business owners are also residents. So I think we kind of separate, well, they're business owners. They're business owners and they're residents, of the majority of them. Some people spoke that said they don't live here. But I just implore the council to please listen to what they said and have a change of heart, and let's revisit this the next council meeting, and let's work together to change this. Or this will go to a referendum, and this will be overturned resoundingly, just as I predicted with Daybreak. Thank you.
Just sort of in response, I don't have my feet in cement on this issue, but I keep hearing from the vice chair and from speakers and so on, let's compromise, let's talk. I haven't heard anything that's specific. Maybe something specific will come up. Putting this on the agenda for the next meeting, I don't think is the right way to go because it doesn't give enough time to really explore anything else.
Maybe if it was on the agenda, we could find a way to delay it. We've been dealing with this for how many years anyway? Let's do the job the right way. Listen to these businesses. You know, we're all about shopping local, and I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of businesses that are struggling in this town, and every sale they make, we get sales tax revenue from. And one person brought it up. These are families that are in a lot of these businesses, and we need to remember that. So I second what Vice Mayor Spellich said. Let's find a way to get some input and do this the right way. We can figure that out. I mean, we're not under a time crunch to do this tomorrow.
For staff to get back, obviously, we've already said several times, we're meeting a couple times tomorrow and Thursday, and there's a lot of things that, you know, we really just can't debate this right now, but there's a lot of things that I think will be clearer, more clear. I wanted to thank Dave Trimble for stepping in. We're welcome Grady back. We're happy to have you up here, and want to appreciate everything that you've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And we look ahead to our next meeting and working together as always. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn? So moved. Just in time. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.